All right, so at least we're live on record here. Well, welcome everyone to our last beautiful session here. And I thought it might be a good idea for us, and I actually do this with every class, so it's not an exclusion. I do this with every class where I do the final together with everyone who's in the course. And the reason why I do it is it gives me a chance to answer last questions. You know, if there's something unclear, if concepts haven't sunken in quite yet, if some of the terminology isn't clear yet, bless you. If there are just some question where, you know, details are not really there. So when I do the final with you guys, it gives me a chance to see where you get stuck. And then I can explain it, and then hopefully it clarifies a few things. So that's one of the reasons why I like to do the final with everyone. And I sent you something yesterday in case you wanted to kind of go through it, to kind of, you know, see what could be right or wrong. You know, it's like guesswork in some cases because it's worded very similarly. So you really have to think about, is this or is it that? And it's not, you know, it's not like, okay, this sounds like it could be about right. The way I write these things is on purpose very similar, so you can kind of zone in and identify the slight differences that make it right or wrong. So when you read my questions, you'll see that that is applicable. So that's not on purpose, because a lot of times with multiple choice, people go and just guess, and that's not really a learning experience. I want you to really read in detail what's there and then figure out, how does this, how did it go again? I have to go back to the modules now or what? So, oh, I like Vicky, I like your lights. Hey, Christmassy, I love that. Okay, yeah, today I'm gonna get a 12-foot high blow-up Santa in front of my house. Yes, I'm very excited about that. Been waiting for it for like 2 weeks now. Anyway, back to the subject matter at hand. So we're going through this together. And then after we've done with the final, which hopefully wouldn't take us that long because we're doing it together, I want to hear some of your project pitches and just want to give some feedback on that so everyone kind of knows how these business plans are put together. So I hope some of you there have something for me to listen to. If not, that's not the end of the world. But if at least someone, you know, is willing to share their project, that would be great. So I can give some feedback on that. So everyone can learn, you know, how these pitch decks are supposed to be put together. So that's the plan for today. My first cup of coffee, which I have to have, otherwise nothing works in my brain. And then UCLA sends out these evaluations for the courses. So if you have a chance today, fill that thing out so they don't haunt me and say, why are people not evaluating your class? Because I always forget to mention it. So now I mention it. Please evaluate the class. Tell them what you liked and didn't like. Feel free to share whatever, you know, harassments I did with you. All is well. So just share that and send it. I don't know if it's sent to Ashley or if it's uploaded somewhere. I have no idea how it works. Just when you have a minute today, do that. Okay, let's get to it. Everyone else is good, by the way? Is everyone good?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you about the light, what you told me about the lights. I was muted. That's why I was saying thank you, but I couldn't be heard.
That's okay. It looks very pretty. So I see we have the Germans here. We have some people from other countries here. So we try to go through it so you guys don't have to, you know, be up until like 5 in the morning. Let me try to share my screen. What just happened? Why is everyone gone? Hold on, something is wrong here.
We're here.
You guys are here.
It's working.
You guys are seeing the screen, yes?
Your screen.
Yeah, we're here. It's just that.
Want to stay up?
Hold on a second. I'm gonna do something here because I wanna see what's what. It's doing something weird. Hold on a second. Chat. I want the chat box upstairs first. I want the chat box. First of all that. And why do I not? Well, I see some of you. I don't see all of you. What the hell is that all about? Hold on. Let me do this. That didn't work.
I think it's because of how Zoom views that you can only see like a couple of us at a time.
That's just wrong on so many ways. I want to see everyone. Damn it. Okay. What the hell? Yeah, I have to literally click down to see you all. That's annoying. So just know I see some of you, not all of you. So if you have questions, just ask. Okay, we are starting now, going through this lovely final. First of all, congratulations, you made it through 3 months of this nonsense. I mean, I have to say, all of you were super smart. You got most of the stuff right. And I really appreciate those of you who reached out to me and, you know, took the chance of me walking you through it in person. I want you to know that everyone always has that chance. Even after this class, if you work on a project and you need advice, you need help, you need input, you forgot everything I taught you, and you lost your book, you can call me and I'm happy to look at it. So don't be shy, just keep my information. It's on the last slide. I think they're closing Canvas down, I want to say a few days after the course is over. So just use my email, my regular email, and just email me with any questions you have. And I love to stay in touch with you guys. I really would appreciate that. Okay, let's get going. Question number 1. I hope you can read this, but I sent this to you as well. So if you can't read it on the screen, read it on the document I sent you last night. So this question is really about comparing the 2 studio models and how they operate specifically as it relates to funding and recoupment. So I would like you to read these questions. I don't have to read them for you, just read them and then tell me which of the 5 answers you believe to be correct. Anyone can tell me, it's all good. Anyone who's ready. Take a moment to read. I hope you can read this and then let me know what you think.
I think E and G are the ones we're scratching off.
They're the ones we're scratching off, meaning they're not correct.
Correct.
Okay.
I would say D and G.
D and G doesn't go?
I think,
Okay.
but I'm, wait, what did it? Oh, because of that international. Oh yeah, actually no, I had a question about C and D, yeah.
Yeah, then ask away.
I'm stuck between C and D not being applicable. I don't think G applies.
Yeah, G, we're all sure about G.
Okay, G, we know no studios use
Oh
collective.
no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I was question 2. I'm so sorry. A, B, C, yeah, no, G. Yeah.
G is
No
out.
G, but then I'm stuck between
Wrong.
A and D.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Also 2. G is out. So which other one do you
Yes.
think is out?
And maybe D, but
Okay, so here's where we are. I'm going to show you which one is out and I'm going to tell you why.
E.
Here are the correct numbers. E and G is in fact out. And here's why E is out. If an independent producer finances the development, production, and distribution of a film project, he or she relinquishes all rights to this in connection with this film to the studio, even if the studio only finances a portion through an acquisition. So that's obviously wrong. Because if you put a movie together and you finance the development and you do your production, obviously the rights are yours. And if the studio buys the US rights, for example, which it says here, it doesn't own the entire IP. It just owns the rights it bought. Does that make sense? So you're not relinquishing all rights when the studio buys a territory like the US, or if it even buys a territory like the US and Spain and Italy and Germany. What you do is, at this point, you license those territories to the studio, but you still control the copyright of the project. You basically just license the rights for a certain period of time. Does that make sense?
yes.
Yes.
Good. All right, question 2. Tell me which 3 answers are right. By the way, if anyone has questions, please jump in. Whoops, sorry. I don't know, there we go. Please
On
jump
question
in.
number
Ask-
1,
Yes,
you're saying that C and D are also correct?
yes, C and D are correct. If an independent,
Even if the studio buys the US domestic, wouldn't they retain that portion of it? The
Yes,
producer
but
would keep the international, but the studio, so they wouldn't control. I think it's tripping me up when it says he or she controls all the rights.
okay,
They would only control the ones they
say-
didn't sell, right?
I should say IP rights, meaning when you create your project, you have the copyright, you have the IP rights. So what the producer is left with is all rights, but the licensing of it would mean that for the period of time, the license would go to the person who buys it for the rights that they're buying. Could be theatrical and TV, could be theatrical TV and online, whatever rights they're buying, they're being licensed, but they're not owned. They're not like the IP or copyright is owned by any of these people. Even if the US licensed the rights, they don't own the copyright. They still just own the license to release and distribute the project in the territory that they acquire. So if you want to say, if you want to be specific, we should say the producer still owns all IP rights. Let me just take this off. I don't know why this is on. Okay, so now it's on silent. Does that make sense, Natalie? Just think about you own a house and the house is yours and you're renting it to a friend. And during the time that you're renting it, you're not really living there. That's how you can look at this. So during the time you license it, you can only license it to that one person and you get money for the license, but after the license is expired, it comes back to you. And you only really license the rights that are applicable. And it could be that someone only licensed the online rights, or it could be that someone only licensed television rights. They don't always license all rights that are available to be licensed. Yeah?
Oh, that makes sense.
Good. All
So
right.
only E and G is wrong.
E and G is wrong.
Mm.
Correct. So question number 2.
Wait, I'm sorry, Jeanette.
Yeah.
D is in David or E is in Edward?
Hold on, where were we? I'll give you the slide. By the way, I'm sending this to you when we're done here, so you don't need to write this down. I mean, you can write it down and then send it to me and then get your 50 points. But I will send this when we're over with to everyone.
Okay.
Okay. So question 2, look at this. Now here it's about, imagine that you're producing a project that someone gives to you, right? And you're looking at it and you're thinking about, pitch deck looks good. Budget is 15 million. Okay, I'm looking at this and I want to determine if this is actually a project that's feasible, if I were to co-produce it and co-finance it. Mark all the statements you feel make this project feasible, make it profitable. So take a look at this and let me know if you feel this is a feasible, potentially commercial project that could lead to profits.
Is it D, F, and G?
Was? Moment. You say D, F, and G is correct, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
I had D and F also correct, and the third one, ugh, could be G, could be.
I think it's D, F, and G.
D, F, and G is,
Yeah.
Yeah, D is in dog.
D is in dog, F and G is in fact correct. So now look at this. These are the correct ones. Tell me where you have questions about this, where you feel something else should be correct or it's not clear to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uli, did I send this to you? Uli? Ulrika?
No, you don't send this to me.
Oh, I'm so bad. My sister
Yeah.
is on here. I'm going to send it to you.
Thank you.
I will send it to you now.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. How is E not correct?
Okay, E.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because it says.
It says
It
or.
says
Or,
Correct.
yes.
You're
Oh.
Yeah.
I took that to mean and. Great. I should have read better.
Cookie, Lord. That's why I
Yeah.
say, it's one of those things where you got to
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
you got to read it. Lord, of course, being a lawyer, knows the devil is in the detail, right? So there's that. Oli, I'm sending it to you now.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, it's gone. There we go. Okay, let's close here. So we understand where the other stuff doesn't work, yes? Anyone, please don't be shy. Ask me. This is the time to ask questions and drill in. No shyness. So here's packaging. Packaging, we know, is something we have to do in order to establish and create the value to a project. Now, looking at these answers, 4 of them actually are correct. Which 4 do we think are those?
I think it's A, B, C, and
A, B,
E.
Yeah.
yeah, I have A, B, C, D.
A, B, C, E is what you're saying?
Yes.
A, B, C, E, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
You guys are
Yeah,
so
I think
good. You
it's
don't even
correct.
need me for this. What the hell? Why am I here? I'm going,
Just
I'm
that
going
one
back
question.
to the beach now. This is makes no sense. You guys are good. I'm liking this. Okay, question number 4.
They get harder.
Ah! Oh,
No.
come on. It's so much fun. All right. Here's the budget. We learned about the budget. You know, we have a budget. It could be just a budget that we make based on a script. And then we find out, well, we can't really make it for this because the market responses are not providing me enough proof that I can actually spend this kind of money because I'm not making enough. That's kind of what the subject matter is about. So one answer is the only one that's correct here. Which one is that?
C.
Not C.
Is it A?
A.
Okay, then
It is A, correct.
then it's A.
Okay, let's talk about C though, because someone said C. So I want to look at that because I want to understand why you think C is correct. The budget for a project for which the international sales estimates are lower than 70 to 75% should be reduced in order for the project to be feasible from an equity investment point of view. That part is true. In a case in which 35% of the budget was pre-sold, securing international pre-sales. Also good. And the production incentives of 40% is applicable. Okay, so why is that not right? Let me look at this.
Because, yeah, I don't know.
Budget international sales are lower. Okay, they're lower than 70 to 75% should be reduced. Okay.
Yeah.
So why is that not correct?
I think it's because even if something is pre-sold, if we have sales estimates that are lower than 70 to 75%, there's no guarantee that it's going to be enough, even with.
I would say we should reduce it. I mean,
It says should be reduced. I feel like C should be correct also.
yeah, for me, C was correct. Yeah.
C, I'm not perfect either. All right, so this is A and C. Let's mark this. Yeah, I did this morning at, I didn't even do the, hold on, we did this. There we go.
And can we talk about B also?
Yes, I will do that right now. Okay, so let's look at B. The budget for a project for which international sales estimates are lower than 70 to 75% should be reduced for the project to be feasible from an equity investment point of view, in which case the US domestic rights were pre-sold at 25. You have no pre-sales here, which is bad, and the US is too low at 25%. And the main reason is you have no pre-sales. That's really why B does not work.
In A, there are also no pre-sales.
Correct.
That's why
You have to have, you know, remember you have to have around 70 from international, and you have
yes, sorry.
no, it's all good, but I want you to know this. Anytime you go to a bank and get bank financing, they're going to make you show them 3 pre-sales. They just will, because they, as the bank, want to see the project has feasibility in the marketplace in order for them to give you a loan based on the unsold rights. Because the rights that you're still selling is driven by the rights that you have sold. They can identify when they look at your pre-sales, if the pre-sales are done in the level of the estimates that the sales agent has established. So they see, aha, they're actually selling them for this amount. So the numbers seem to be okay. They seem to be fair. And they also see, well, people are actually pre-buying. So there is a demand for the project. For the bank, it's really important to see that there is a demand for this project in order to give any loans. And when a bank thinks like that, it's because they don't want to take any risk. So we should kind of adapt that way of thinking as well to protect us as producers and to protect our equity investors, because it's a healthy way of looking at it. And also, if you are thinking about producing a movie for 100% of a budget, and you're not even able to get interest for 1/3 of it, I mean, you have to just be real about it and say, okay, this thing may not be what I think it is. Now, the difference is when you do a television series, because with television, it's a little different. Here, the main focus for you to look at is really domestic. So if you have a domestic sale, you don't really care about foreign so much. It would be great to have some foreign, but it's not your entire focus in that case. So the domestic is driving the market foreign anyway. So it helps your foreign market. And television series are really driven by what network or streaming service has bought it, which signals a kind of a quality or commerciality to the international buyers. So there, it's very important to be driven by the domestic market, while a movie is not so much driven by the domestic market, unless you have a movie that has a theatrical release. Even if it's a small 100 screen, 200 screen theatrical release of some sort with a mini major or kind of an outlet that does, for example, art house movies. That drives also the foreign market a little bit. Now today, the theatrical world is all upside down. We know this. I mean, look what Warner Brothers is doing. It's quite interesting in getting their movies out for 4 weeks and then putting them straight onto their platform. I think we're going to see a lot of changes by seeing the theatrical window, which when we started off, the theatrical window in the US was a year before the movie would go to international or would go to anywhere. Then it got shortened to 9 months. Then it got shortened to 6 months before the movie would go on video, on demand, and international. Then it got down to 3 months. Now it's down to 1 month, right? The theatrical window is so short now, and it's becoming a whole new thing. And the calculation for making theatrical work is also changing, simply because very many times do you see the theatrical distribution just being a loss leader to create value for a project in the foreign market. So even though a studio would release a movie and not make any money in the US, it still elevates the value of the movie internationally, and that's why they do a US release. For an independent producer, it's a tricky thing to do, because if you have a loss in domestic, it carries over to your revenues internationally. So even if you have an increased value internationally, it would have to be at least 40%, or at least that increase, 35 to 40%, for you to make up potential losses in the US. So sometimes it's much more feasible financially to think about a premiere on a VOD scenario, where you get like Image Entertainment does a lot of this. There's a lot of US buyers. Lionsgate does it too, where they buy a movie that is really geared towards a theatrical audience, but is not sure if they can make enough money in the theaters. So they use it to make a huge premiere online and give you a larger advance for that. So sometimes it makes more sense for you to get a larger advance, not having the US theatrical release component, and then just go through with the film being released internationally, if that makes sense. Okay.
I have one quick question.
Why is A correct then? So when we don't have pre-sales here as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no domestic. So that's why I thought it's C, because it's just one answer.
It's because with the question, it's saying what are the important considerations to be made, and when you have something lower than 70 to 75%, then you should reduce the budget. Like even if the other stuff
is the correct statement, yeah.
Yeah, it's a consideration.
Okay, are we still stuck on the number 4?
One quick question about C.
Good.
Production incentives of 40% of the budget is applicable. And it says production incentives. Does that are you referring to specifically location tax incentives, or is that including?
Good question, Isaac. When I mention production incentives, it's a summary word that would describe tax incentives and tax rebates in the US and subsidies and grants outside of the US, because in many countries, the incentives that we're getting are not necessarily tax driven. They're basically driven by governments supporting the cultural development in their country, and they're not necessarily a tax credit. For example, in Germany, you get both. You get a tax credit of 20%, but you also get a subsidy-driven component that is decided by a committee based on your cultural content component of the film. It has to do with, if it's something with Germany or German history, or, something they feel relates to the region, then they give an extra little pot for you, and that has nothing to do with taxes. These are grants, these are loans. Grants, for example, you don't have to pay back. Loans, you have to pay back on paper. And then the word incentive means it could include anything. Could be a tax credit from Georgia, could be a tax rebate from, I don't know where they give rebates to me, they're all the same because I always use lenders. By the way, who did I talk to? I think, Lord, you and I talked about the
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about the lender thing. Lord is doing something in Colombia. Was it Colombia? Right?
Yeah, Colombia,
Right.
they issue tax certificates.
Right.
They don't have to go out and sell to get your money back.
Correct. So what Lord was describing to me is in Colombia, and it's in many places the same, because when you have it's a credit or it's a certificate that you would then get, and then you have to sell it to a company that can use it. It's basically like you get your tax credit or tax rebate, I think it is in this case. And now you have to go to a company that is located in the region. Let's say you have Ford Motors that is in the region that you're getting a tax credit from. And Ford Motors made a lot of money that year, and they're looking to lower their tax payments. They would buy that rebate from you in order to use it to lower their taxes. But you then have to go sell this. So it's a lot of work, and it's not necessarily what you want to be doing. So I explained to Lord, the better thing to do is not to even get involved in this. As a producer, you have so much going on that you need to pay attention to. If you have to take a tax rebate from a region, and you have to go find a buyer for it, and then you have to produce the movie, and then later on you have to figure out how much money did you actually spend, and then you have to go through the audit to make sure you get the money, and then you don't get the money until the end of the tax year, so you can't really use it to fund your production. All of this is a lot of headache and not necessary. I would always say try to find lenders that will cash flow your credit, that will cash flow your rebate, that will cash flow whatever is not cash flowed and given to you at closing. And there are a lot of companies who do this, and there are a lot of banks who do this. So in that case, you get the money up front. You do not have to deal with selling the rebate to someone. You do not have to deal with doing a tax return later and going through an audit. You don't have to deal with anything. That is all done by the tax incentive lender who gave you the money up front. Granted, it's going to cost you money. They're not doing this for free. So you're going to lose a little bit of the incentive that you would be getting. So could sometimes be up to 20%, maybe 25%. I don't know about Colombia. Maybe the lender who lends in Colombia says, Colombia, holy moly, I'm charging 25% because it's a risky thing. So you have that. But it is worth it to do this, because you will not have the headache of dealing with this finance component and trying to realize it. And you have the advantage of using it for your finance plan as a finance source to reduce your equity and to reduce the need to find more money elsewhere. So I always urge you guys to do that. Where were we? Question 4. We answered this question. Okay, let's go to 5. So here in 5, it's a little similar to question 4 in a sense that we have to figure out the value of a project, the market demand of it. Take a look at these scenarios and tell me which 4 answers you feel make sense to you.
There's 2 times B, or does it just?
On mine. Oh, sorry. Squeeze me. B. The hell happened here? Oh, it's one of those stupid things that gives me a headache. I had so many formatting issues yesterday with this stupid thing. Hold on. C. Ach nee, jetzt, ne? Also. Sorry. C.
Love the German.
Oh, this is crazy. This is being formatting stupid. Okay, I have to fix this, but okay, I'm going to do C. Ich weiß, was ich mache. 1 second. I know what I'm going to do. I hate formatting on. There we go. I'm going to get you one way or the other. Okay, CD. Dann haben wir hier ABCD. CD. And the number here. E. All right. Is this correct now? Yes. Yeah. ABCD. So 4 of them are true and 1 does not work. And let's talk about those.
I feel C is a little bit not feasible, and the others maybe are. A, B, and C. A, B, D, and E could work. And C, I'm not sure. It's an art house film for 2 million, and it's just with 100. Was it that one with 100 screens? I think that's so low, but it's so subjective. I don't know.
I think B, C, D, E are correct because A, there's no sales estimates and no feedback. There's nothing in the domestic markets or international markets.
Yeah.
Me too.
And also, and I had the question of festival market, film festivals could release money, like we're selling it there. That was actually a question of mine.
Yeah, good. So let's go through them. So in the scenario A, you have a little movie that you're making for $250,000 and you are trying to apply your finance plan, but then you kind of think, well, you know, it's a little movie, so maybe I don't have to do it. I think I'm just going to aim for the festival market and I'm just going to take it out there and it's going to get a lot of buzz and it's going to make a lot of money there. Obviously, that's a very risky thing to do because it means that someone gives you a check for 250, or maybe you invest it yourself. You don't really know what's gonna happen. And the idea here is, yes, theoretically you could be making money in the festivals, but the reality is most of these movies do not. It's a very hard route to take because it's very volatile. So this is not a scenario you should be engaging into ever. Okay, just remember that one.
Oh,
now, when we look at the next one, B, you have a movie, again, it's the same movie for $250,000. In this case, you got sales estimates, but they're only 50%. Well, theoretically, that's a little low. You get 25% from a tax incentive lender, and you have an MG from 65% from a US buyer. So what this tells you, the MG from the US is very high. And that tells you that the movie's international estimates are low, likely because this is a domestically driven content piece. So it could be when the US, buys it for this much money, it could mean that's very much a subject matter that relates more to the US than the international market, which is why it's okay to do it, even though the sales estimates are so low. Does that make sense? When you go to C, imagine this. Imagine you're doing a movie for $2 million and you get Nicole Kidman to play the lead. We're talking about an A-level actor here. I saw the movie yesterday with, Ryan Murphy, The Prom musical. Hilarious.
How is that? I want to see it.
So Ryan Murphy.
I just started it today.
When it opened up, I was looking at it with Jim. I said, Jim, just the opening already, I was like, okay, this must be Ryan Murphy. I love this. See, here you have a guy, Ryan Murphy. Whatever you watch from him, immediately already in the opening credits, latest, the first 5 minutes, you know it's from him. This guy is a brand. I mean, this is what you want to be. You want to create a content brand around you. So I watched it. Of course, it's totally over the top. I enjoyed it. I love the music. The lyrics are hilarious. It's very over the top. I mean, very. But it's Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman, great cast. And they all, of course, look fabulous, which is, I think, why they did it. And it's a fun movie to watch. Is it, critically acclaimed? I don't think so, but it's a fun movie to watch. It's very light. It's very light and bright and could be, something you enjoy over the holidays. But I think it's a fun movie. But it is over the top, just letting you know.
I was on set for 3 days as a background actor for the first scene. It was so fun. And I met Meryl Streep. She was standing right next to me for 3 days. I would have done it for free, but... Listen,
Jessica, does she really look this good?
I stood like next to her and she bumped into me several times actually when we were walking with many people. And I checked, I analyzed her. She looks so good, even better than in the movie. Like in real life, oh my God, this woman is 70.
I know, no wrinkles.
And she was dancing. It was the first scene, some of the scenes, and where she was dancing on the red carpet, the very first scene with James Corden. And I couldn't believe she can dance. And we were shooting until 3 a.m., like for 14 hours. And she was still very kind, could still dance, was not complaining. She's such a pro.
Oh my amazing. God, that makes me very happy to hear. I thought they must have at least done some VFX on her face, but if this is real, I'm impressed.
No, she looked like that. Wow. I mean, it's a wig. I mean, her hair, but the rest, like her body, it's like.
Yeah. Wow, impressive. Well, thank you for that little insight. Anyway, it's fun to watch. What I was saying is something else. We're talking about a small little movie, $2 million. Nicole Kidman, fabulously that she looks, you know, in the prom, is now in your movie. And then you have a theatrical distributor, let's say like Focus, let's say 2000, or you have Focus Features, or you have, what else is a small one, Magnolia. Any of these lower, you know, smallish studio level distributors tell you we're going to take this movie out on 100 screens. Now, 100 screens sounds small, but for a movie like this, if it's a low budget movie like this, and it has an A-level actor, it actually is meaningful, because those 100 screens are probably in major cities, New York, LA, Chicago, so they create some buzz. So that makes the movie very valuable. So if you find yourself in a situation where you do a small movie with an A-level actor and you get a small release, that's a viable situation to find yourself in. Because today, any theatrical release is meaningful, especially because we don't have that many. And because it's a piece that stands out in its content form. It is art house, but it is driven by a lead actor. It's comparable to, I mean, The Blind Side was more than 2 million. I think it was like, I want to say 5 or 6 or 7, something. But it wasn't a high budget movie for someone like Sandra Bullock to be in it. That to me is an art house movie. And it was first released on a limited scale. That's an example of a movie that broke out and is an art house movie that made it. There are a few examples like that, I'm sure, that I'm just not thinking of right now. But this scenario would be a valuable scenario. Obviously, we can debate. And I don't have a crystal ball, nor does the studio executive have a crystal ball. So we don't really know which of these are really actually going to be successful. Who knows? I might be wrong about this. But I would be making this movie. So if someone come to me and say, I have a $2 million movie, I have Nicole Kidman or Meryl Streep or anyone like this leading it, I would finance this, eyes closed. I don't even need a theatrical release. I would do it because I know the kind of gravitas this kind of project can have. Does that answer your question? Anyone had a question about this? Yeah. Whoever asked. Who asked for C? Right.
Me.
Oh, already. Yeah, okay. So no one had a question about D. Why D's make sense?
I didn't pick that one, so I'm confused by that.
All right, I'm glad. I'm glad, thank you, because usually that is the question that throws people off. So imagine you're in France and you're a French producer and you're producing a TV series in French. Could be also a German TV series in Germany, doesn't matter, but it is not a global TV show. It's not an English language television series. So you're producing this, and usually when you produce a series for your local market, you get funded by the network station and maybe get some subsidies, and that's kind of how you fund it. Because obviously it's a local content form that you can't really do pre-sales. It's not really, you know, who's going to pre-buy a French-speaking TV series? Not many people I know. So here's what happens. You do the series, it's on the air, on TF1, everyone's happy, and now Degeto, which is a German-based distribution company, sales agency also, who buys a lot of these European series and sells it worldwide. So they see that, and they're very familiar with what's going on in Europe, especially France, Italy, England, and so forth. And they often pick up these series that are local language series. They pick them up and then they try to sell them at AFM and Berlinale and all these markets. So all of a sudden, a US buyer like HBO comes around and says, I really like this French series. This is interesting. And when you see the HBO series, I think it's My Best Friend, that is an Italian language television series that they aired on HBO. When I watched it the first time, I'm like, what am I watching here? They're speaking Italian. Now I have to read the subtitles. But it was a very good series, and I found myself being engaged, and HBO bought it, and that's exactly what happened. It was an Italian produced television show for Italy. I think it was on Rai or something, and they didn't necessarily think that they would sell it to HBO, but they did. So when the French producer now gets a call from HBO, you know, saying, we want your TV show, we want to air it in the US, you're surprised. You're like, hello? I'm going to make extra money from the US that I didn't even count on? That's a good thing. So you basically branch out of your local marketplace and sell the show in other countries that are not even part of your equation when you make it, because you made it specifically for a local marketplace. This can also happen for movies that are foreign language movies. I mean, when we go through the pain of watching the Academy Awards, we see a lot of these foreign language movies being nominated, etc., etc. And the ones that are nominated, a friend of mine actually acquired the Japanese film. This is a few years back. The Japanese language film, The Departed. It's a few years back. I don't know if you guys know it, but it was a beautiful film and it won the Academy Award. And he is a domestic buyer. So he bought it, released it in the US theaters, just in a few theaters. It made actually good money, but it was a foreign language movie that they released here with subtitles. Happens all the time. It's not something you can count on, and it's not something that you actually set out to do, but it is something that can happen. And that's what happened here, which means it makes it a profitable project. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Question 6. Where are we?
So what are the 4? So A was the one wrong.
A is wrong. B, C, D, E is right for 5. Okay, so now we're talking about risk diversification and profit optimization. We had so much fun with this. This is so beautiful. So here we're talking about, we're looking at the scenarios that are applicable, you know, especially when you look at protecting your investor. So you have these various scenarios that you look at. Only 3 of them are good scenarios. The other ones are not good. So I'd like you to take a look at these scenarios and tell me which ones you think make sense for you and which one you think do not make sense. And let's talk about them. I know it's a lot to read us. I'm sorry. I got carried away.
Well, I think E is wrong, but that's it.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I wanted to give you one simple one. There is another one.
Yeah.
Which is it?
I think B.
Correct. B is also wrong. Here's why. If you compare the risk profile for investor A, who finances 30% of the budget of a film, for which a bank provides a gap loan of 20% of the budget against unsold rights, which is what a gap loan is, with the risk profile of investor B, who finances 50% of the budget and takes over that position for the bank, the risk profile relating to the recoupment position is higher for investor B because he invests more. It's actually incorrect. It's not higher. The fact that the investor takes over the banking position means he still recoups in the same position. He actually can make more money because he can charge a higher premium, and he doesn't have more risk because he would be one way or the other recouping behind the bank. That's why this is not correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone else have any questions on this? Spit it out. It's the time now. You guys all know this? Wow, seriously? Don't be shy.
Just kill me now, Jeanette. Just kill me now.
Yeah, just kill me now comes later. Hold on. Actually, I reworded that one. Okay. Okay, so we have this. These are the correct ones. Yeah. We see here A is correct, C is correct, D is correct, and you guys are clear on why they are correct. Yes. Okay. All right. If you're not, please tell me. All right. You're so good at this. Okay, tell me which ones are correct here. It's regarding managing our minimum guarantee. How do we optimally manage that component for distribution to use it as a financing source. Take your time, read it, and tell me which 3 you think are correct.
Janet, I have a question about C. It says that the investor will be requested to recoup in first position. And we know that the minimum guarantee also is repaid in first position. Which one in this case would be in first position, basically?
There isn't, this is not a movie you can close, because if the equity investor requires to be in first position, that equity you cannot use. That's why that question is a very good question. So that means you can't use that scenario. And there are equity investors who will come to you and say, I want to recoup in first position. I don't want you to do anyone in front of me. And then you are, okay, if you want to recoup in first position, you better give me at least half the budget, because otherwise I can't make that work. You know, so that's a valid question. This scenario is not going to work because of this request. You cannot push the equity investor in the first position because you have a bank, and the bank will require that position. So these two finance elements would not fit together. That's exactly why this is not something that you can do. So definitely C is not going to be marked as correct. Thank you for that.
Is D wrong
And I
too?
think
What, Isaac, what are you thinking?
Is D wrong? This is so fun to say your answers in front of 36 people. This is great.
Isn't it? I know, right? What you're thinking D? Let me read D.
I think D's wrong.
Oh, D is wrong? Okay, so you're thinking D should not be marked as correct, is what you're saying. Okay, so let me read this. If the producer has an equity investor financing 30% of the budget, which goes net to the budget, and then he has a mezzanine lender financing 10% of the budget, and then he has a incentive lender financing 20% of the budget, and he has the bank giving him gap for 20% of the budget, all amounts are net to the budget, he can use the MG from the sales agent and will still not be fully financed because he cannot use the bank MG. Okay, so how many percentages do we have? Let's count them together. We have 30%, then we have 10% from the mezzanine, then we have 20% from the production incentive lender. Then we have 20% from gap. And then we have 20, 40, 50. I'm only counting 80% so far. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
What am I missing?
20%.
Yeah, 20% I'm missing.
Isn't it from the MG?
But I'm marking, he said, yeah, but he said he feels it's incorrect. And I'm saying it's correct because I only have 80%. So that would be a correct answer, Isaac. Does that make sense?
Jeanette, I have a question. I think I remember once you said that when we have a gap loan, we shouldn't be getting the minimum guarantee.
From the sales agent, correct. That's why you only have 80% here. Because if you get the gap loan of 20%, you cannot use the MG from the sales agent. And for that reason, you're not fully financed in scenario D because you can only use one or the other. You're absolutely right, Maurice, because we have only 80% right now. We cannot use both. Does that make sense? We have to decide, are we using the bank loan or are we using the MG? And we can't do both. So we're missing 20% in this scenario, which is why we're not fully financed which is why D is marked to be correct.
Thank you.
And what are we thinking about? What are we thinking about B? Do we think this is correct or do we think it's not working? Let's go through this. If the producer has an equity investor financing 20% of the budget, that's 20, I'm writing this down. A mezzanine lender financing 10. The production incentive financing 20.
Oh, it works.
Pre-sale contracts of 20. Gap loan of 10. And an MG for 20% of the budget. An MG from the sales agent.
Yeah, it works.
He would be fully financed because he has 100%. Is that true?
Yes, he could replace the gap loan, but he has 20%. And the gap loan was just 10, but that's fine, right? I mean, we can.
Exactly. So 20, 30, warte, 30, 50, 70. Okay, are we sure this is correct?
Oh, wait a minute.
No, we'll be short by 10% if we take out the gap
Short
loan.
by 10%. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Because we can't use the 10% gap because we have an MG. So B would not be marked and C would not be marked. Everything else is actually workable. All the other scenarios are workable.
Jeanette, I just noticed that I have a different version of the final because my B is 30%. The equity investor financing 30% of the budget, not 20%.
Hold on a second.
I have that same one that she does as well.
30?
Yeah.
I have 20. Why do I have 20? Why do you have 30?
No, I think, Jeanette, you just updated the final on Thursday, and that's the latest version that is on the website.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Wait,
Sorry about this.
I have 20.
I didn't think I changed any numbers in there.
Wait a minute, let me check.
I didn't think I changed, because if I updated it, I just updated some language. I didn't think I changed any number. That's weird.
Oh,
What if
I have 30 as well.
So it's 30 in mine too.
Yeah, all of them.
So for me,
all
it
of
worked
the
with the
answers
10%
30.
gap.
Yeah, same.
Is the gap still 10 in that one?
So
The
in my
10% and an MG.
wait, the MG was.
I'm using the one you sent out last night.
Yeah, use the one I sent out last night. Throw everything else away.
Yeah.
And if anyone already submitted the other one, don't worry. I'll take a look at that. I don't know why they're different. I'm not sure. I didn't think I changed any numbers.
So the one from yesterday is the same like the PowerPoint presentation here.
Yeah, right. So, but if you had one that said 30% of the budget, then he would be fully financed because we would then have the extra 10%. Right now we're missing 10 in scenario B.
Jeanette, can I ask you a question? Are you ever brought into situations where people are looking for the sales agents where they already have a lot of these in place and you have to instruct everyone that you cannot do the project because of the way it's set up?
Yeah, I run into that every time. It's called cleanup. So what I do when projects are brought to me and they have all kinds of, usually the elements that they have, they don't fit together. And, and it's okay because producers, when they put things together, they just want to put things together, and then when it comes time to put it all together, they see, this doesn't fit and this is not, So it's sometimes helpful to bring in a third party to clean up the mess and go, okay, guys, how about we do this. So your job then would be, Darren, to make it so that it fits. So you have to renegotiate with people. You have to update what it is that you want to keep, and you have to get rid of what you don't want. Or you have to, change the elements a little bit. It happens all the time. There's always some kind of nonsense going on with these projects because look, they take time to be put together, and a lot of stuff happens also during the time that they're being put together. You also have to deal with that. All of a sudden the actor changed. All of a sudden the director has something else to do. All of a sudden one of the distributors says, I don't want it anymore. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen all the time by the time you get to it. But that doesn't mean you have to throw it in the garbage. It just means it needs a little attention from your end. Knowing what you know now, you know how you can make these elements fit and what would be the best for you. So you pick the ones that are easiest to negotiate and easiest to keep and have the most value, and you throw everything else out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question
Something
too.
that you want me to give you feedback on, feel free to send it. Are we understanding why these are the correct answers, A, D, and E in question 7?
So if we have a, yeah, but if, when we have a gap loan of 10% and we want to replace it with the MG of a sales agent, and it's 10%, can we have more than 10% as an MG? It's a stupid question, but.
Of course you can have more than 10% as an MG. You can
Oh,
have
it's
20%, you can have 30%, you can 50%
Okay.
have 50% of an MG. The MG can be anything the sales agent agrees to give you.
Okay.
It's usually somewhere between 10 and 30 in that range, just to give you an idea where it usually lands. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And remember that when you get an MG from a sales agent, I would always take that rather than the bank loan. You can still take your pre-sales to the bank and have them cash flow the pre-sales, so you have that money. But for the unsold rights portion, which is what the sales agent gives you money for, I would always choose the sales agent because A, they have skin in the game to make sure that they get repaid, which is good. And B, the closing goes faster. Because if the bank only has to bank the contracts, it's much less legal work, it's much less for Lord to do. The lawyers are happy because it's clean cut. It's just some notices of assignments that need to be sent back by distributors assigning the money to go to the bank. It's much easier. The only thing that you will notice is if a sales agent will give you an MG, they will likely increase their sales fee quite a bit. And it could be 10, 15% more than what you're paying because they take risk with you. It's still worth it for me. If you want to talk to a sales agent about taking the higher sales fee only for the time during which they recoup this minimum guarantee amount, that would be a good balance and that would be a good compromise. And some sales agents will agree to that, but not everyone. So just keep in mind that if you want to push back a little on these higher fees that they will be charging, that might be the corridor where you can negotiate and saying, listen, you're only really taking risk for this amount that you're advancing. Maybe even I'm allowing another 20% on top of it because it's investment. But after you recouped the MG plus maybe 20%, I'd like to get a lower sales fee to apply for all the rest of the territories that you're selling. So that's a way to negotiate with them, giving them some incentive, giving them some extra money, like they would be an investor, and then say the rest is, the rest we do regularly, just as an idea. Question 8, 3 answers are correct. So what are we doing about creating a solid finance plan? What would that look like? Take a read and give me your thoughts.
I think I have.
There's only one that's not working.
I think I have A, B, D as correct, but let me double check.
That is actually correct, Jessica, but I want to know if the other people have questions about this as well, and maybe understand.
I put C as the wrong one.
You have C as the wrong one, correct. So C is not working, correct. That is true. You guys are so good. Wow. But anyone out there who is lost with this question, please feel free to ask me, because I don't want you to just, mark the answers. I want you to understand what you learned for 3 months. Everyone's clear on this?
I don't know. It seems to me, as soon as I read the production incentive loan is offered at 50% and then the producer declines the production incentive, that automatically doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Why would you decline that?
Why would you do that, you idiot? Absolutely right. See, this is an easy one not to say yes to, yeah.
I don't know. The production incentive is a kind of a no-brainer. So it's like, I don't see a situation where you would decline that.
Yes, you wouldn't.
That's what made me choose that one, or what made me suspect that one. As soon as I said the producer declines the incentive, I'm like, why would you do that?
Yes, that's very true. That is very true. So mark those answers down. Here are the correct ones. A, B, D. Yeah. If you don't have questions, I'm moving on.
Sorry,
Jeanette, can I ask? Oh,
I'm glad you have questions. Go ahead, Naris.
B, it says that we can split between the mezzanine lender and equity investor. And I just noted that it's better to always get higher equity than mezzanine. In this case, why would we want to split it?
It says here that the mezzanine lender requires a lower premium than the equity, which is why you would want to include it from a financial point of view. The mezzanine lender, if you split your equity between mezzanine and equity, you pay less money because the mezzanine is going to have a lower premium for sure and may or may not have an interest. In the end of the day, mezzanine is always cheaper than equity, and you also don't have a large back-end participation that you have to deal with, and you're likely not dealing with any ownership sharing in the IP. So if you have the possibility to get a mezzanine lender and you feel good about recouping that, then you should choose a mezzanine lender and keep your equity lower. That's what that says, which is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but there was someone else who had a question.
Yes, I'm just verifying because once again, the original final that I had is different from this one. So when we turn our stuff in, we're turning in the PowerPoint that you sent us yesterday, just with our answer circled.
Yes, yes.
Cool.
I'm going to actually, can you email me what you have? I want to actually compare that.
Sure, yeah, I'll
Thank
do
you
that.
so much.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, if you have something else, don't worry, just turn this in, and I'm going to actually write a note to everyone. I have different finals for different courses, and sometimes they're slightly different, and it could very well be that I uploaded something earlier in the course that doesn't match this, so I apologize for that.
I downloaded the final off of Canvas as a Word document, and I'm just like circling my answers on there. So
that's okay. That is perfectly fine. Whichever form it comes back to me is perfectly fine. And even if you're doing the original, the earlier one, it's fine, because I'm gonna grade them the way, you know, the answers are right. If it's a different version, it's a different version, but I know what the answers should be. So don't worry about that either. But if you can send me what you were looking at, that would be great. So everyone should just download the latest version or use this Excel, use this PowerPoint or the Word document and send that back to me when you submit. Anyone questions about 8? Is this all clear? Yeah. 9. Okay, this is about collateral. Remember collateral, and we have 4 answers here that are correct. I'm going to take this down here. What the hell? Because you already see the answers. No, let's not do that. Quickly taken away. So when we talk about collateral, obviously we're talking about, in this case, our collateral is the distribution rights revenue. So our distribution rights is our collateral in the world of film and television finance. So let's look at this and see how to optimally manage the collateral. What would be applicable here? 4 scenarios will work, the others won't.
I think B, D, and G could be correct, and maybe F. But absolutely.
F and G, yeah.
I said no to B.
B is not going to work, correct.
I also have to double check if it's the same version. I was working on the other one.
Yeah. Just take your time, read this, just in case you have something else in front of you, just, you know.
Oh, that's.
Jeanette, I don't think A is right.
Okay, let me check. For a gap loan, most banks require a minimum of 3 pre-sales from a bankable distributor, as well as 200% of the gap loan amount to be available in unsold rights as projected by a bankable sales agent. Why is that not correct?
Well, I'm assuming that I'm tripping it up on the definition, no?
Okay.
Gap loan amount
I
is
know
never
you.
gonna
I know
be-
you'll have a tendency to overthink it, which I love because you're a lawyer. So here, let me break that down for you. Every bank, and I'd say most banks here, because there might be banks in Lithuania that I don't know about, require 3 pre-sales. They do. You're going to find that to be applicable. And there may or may not be 35%. That we're not talking about what that is here, but we do know that banks will require 3 pre-sales. So that's a given. We also know when the bank is going to give you a loan amount against unsold rights, which is your gap loan, they want to cover their butt by 200%. So if they give you $1 million, they want to see unsold rights valued at $2 million. That's what we're talking about here. So when I talk about 200% collateral, it just means your sales estimates have to be double the amount that are available to be sold than what you're getting from the bank. Like what we have done in our scenarios, we just cut it by half. So we basically looked at, okay, what are unsold rights? All we get from that is half. That's the other way of looking at it, but it's still the same. The bank looks at it from a collateral point of view, and they require 200% of what they give you. Make sense?
So for a gap loan, we need pre-sales?
Yes,
Like,
whenever you want a gap loan from a bank, you will always have to also show 3 pre-sales.
I mean, you have to show, yeah. I didn't know about the 3 pre-sales, yeah.
They never just give you a gap loan. There is no scenario that I have ever experienced where a bank just gives me a gap loan if I don't have pre-sales. And those pre-sales need to be from what they consider bankable distributors. So they can't just be any pre-sales. So you can't go and say, I sold to my uncle Schmidt, who just started yesterday being an agent in Greece, and he's buying Greece. You know, doesn't work. So it needs to be pre-sales to distributors that the bank will consider bankable and that they will say, these have value to us. So it might be that you have 5 pre-sales altogether, but they only consider 3 to be bankable, which is okay. That's all you need. But
Jeanette, with COVID and with all of the structures changing right now, have a lot of those companies changed? I mean, in the bank size? Are they reassessing all of their relationships?
Well, what is changing is that we have new distributors coming in and new platforms coming in that the banks are now starting to look into and work with. So they have new players that they're evaluating. That's one of the change that is happening. And they may or may not use them just yet, but they're adding them to the roster. What has always been changing and what will continuously change is that the pre-sale market is iffy. So as I mentioned early on, when I started my career, I was able to sell 120% of my budget and actually went drinking champagne the minute I came back from the Cannes Film Festival. I haven't even shot a day because I was like, yeah, I'm already 20% in profit. Thank you very much. So those times are long gone, unfortunately. That was when I was in my 20s. Hallelujah, I want those back. Anyway, so it went down from 120% to like 100%. People were still saying, okay, fine, it's still enough. We can still make the movie. And then it went down 80, 60, and then it got iffy. And now we're like at 30% when, you know, if we're lucky. But that's still a number that's doable for a project that has value. If you can't do these pre-sales, you really have to look at your project. I mean, I hate to say this, but it simply means this project should not be made at this time. It could mean that the project is good, but it's not timely. It could be that there is an element missing, but it is risky to do anything without pre-sales. Of course, the smaller projects, you know, they are, you know, a little harder to get pre-sales for, but you do get them because who did I talk to the other day? I think it was Daniel, who we talked about lower budgeted movies and we talked about all these lower budgeted movies. There are specialized sales agents / distributor for this lower budgeted movie world. And even they pre-buy. I gave him some distributors in Germany that buy specifically low budget movies that I knew of. They also buy higher budget, but they also buy lower budget. So every country has their group of niche distributors and buyers that buys these low budget movies. So even for the low budget movies, you should be able to do pre-sales. You just have to find the right sales agents that targets these kind of buyers. So the work would be to research a sales agent that does these kind of budget level movies. That's really what it comes down to. But Darren, yes, a lot has changed, to answer your question. And I think a lot is still changing with where we are right now with the theatrical market changing. We have no idea what the theatrical market is going to be, if there is going to be a theatrical market. I mean, we see all these theater owners closing doors. It's a very volatile time. But what I'm also noticing, I just had a conversation with my agent at Gersh the other day, is that right now they are so eager to look for content that's being put together and is even close to being finished, because there's no content available. No one could shoot during COVID. Everyone is running out of stuff. So this is a very good time for people like you guys to create content and get it out there. It's definitely, I think, advantageous. So which ones do we think work here? Give me 4 that you think can work, or 3 that you think cannot work.
A works.
A works.
Yeah, A works.
D works.
Yes, correct.
F and G.
G
Correct.
works.
F and G. It's A, D,
F and G. Yeah.
That's correct. So here are the correct ones. Do you have questions about this section, about why some of these don't work? Any questions here from anyone? If you do have, let me know. Okay, we're good, I guess. All right, question 10. One answer is the only one that works here. We're financing a project. Here are the elements. Can it go in production? Yes or no? It's pretty straightforward. This one should be an easy one for you to answer.
Is it D?
Yeah, that's the only one that works. And we understand why, right? Because again, you can't take a minimum guarantee if you have a gap loan. It's basically the same process, but I cannot tell you how many times people come to me with elements like this, and I was like, I'm sorry, it's not gonna work. Ask your investor to give you more money. Yeah, it happens all the time. This is a very real thing. I face this daily. So as long as you understand, certain things just don't fit together. Here's where we are. Oops, sorry. No, what did I just do? Yes, here. We all know what a collection agent is. This should be an easy one for you to answer. There's only one that doesn't work. And you will pick it out immediately. I'm going to actually fix this a little bit. This is like not nicely formatted. There's just one thing the collection agent does not do.
Is it G?
Yeah, correct. Even though the collection agent is called a collection agent, and we always think, oh, the collectors, they're gonna call you up when you have debt and they're gonna annoy the shit out of you. Excuse my French. They don't do that. These people are simply more like, like escrow agents, if you want to call it that. Like they're the Switzerland of the world. They're neutral people, and as you know from Switzerland, they're very proper and everything by the book. They're worse than the Germans. So that's what a collection agent is. They basically are an escrow agent, and it is your responsibility to chase money. It's the sales agent's responsibility to chase money. It's not their responsibility to pick up the phone to any of these people that haven't paid or paid late to chase your money. That's not what they do. But they do all the other things. So remember, when you start working with a collection agent, the things that they do. By the way, the karma, in not all the courses, but I think in 2 of the courses, we have 3 here today online, but In 2 of the courses, the comma wasn't uploaded, and I don't know why. So I updated that. It should be there. There should be a comma blank thing. So when you go to the collection agent management agreement, which is what comma stands for, and just read that document, you understand a lot of how these movies are structured. It's actually a great template to read, because you're going to see, hold on, what? Wow. Well, you see how it's all coming together in that agreement. Freeway, who is a collection agent, they sent that to me, and I thought it was hugely helpful to kind of have that blank document in front of you. So feel free to use it and play around with that. Any questions for 11? No? Oh, good. Oh my God, you're so good.
Just ask a quick question about comma, because ours got held by SAG and they wouldn't release it until, I believe, God, a year after the project was completed and closed and everything delivered. Are you finding that that SAG is doing that more and more? It's just a personal question.
Hold on. You're saying the comma was held by SAG, as in they didn't want to sign it?
Right.
I've never heard that. That's weird.
Neither had we, and they just basically sat on it. It was almost like they were collecting some type of a fee. It was just very bizarre.
That is odd. I mean, I know that SAG is a signatory to the comma, and that they sometimes want to make sure that the position for the residuals is correct. Maybe they want a bond that they want to put in there, and that's usually the only 2 comments they would be making that relate to either residuals or a bond. But
okay, that makes more sense.
They shouldn't be making any other comments. They shouldn't be holding it up for anything. That is weird. I've never heard this, Darren.
Okay, that helps me a little bit. Now I can go back and ask.
Yeah, just tell them, what is the problem here? Do you want a bond? Do you want your residuals? Do you want a different position? What do you want? Just tell me what you want.
Well, we finally got it back, but it just took forever. It took a year.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard this. No, that's not normal. Yes. Number 12, the completion bond. We all know what the completion bond is and what they do. And there's 2 things that are correct and 2 things are not correct. Which do we think work?
B and C.
B and C.
B and C is correct. You guys know.
B and C also.
In and out, in and out. Yay, look at that. So now we're going to do our lovely case study. So what I was thinking of doing, you guys have the case study in front of you. I just kind of summed it up on here. You're not going to need to look at it because we're going to do it together. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, I'm going to maybe open up an Excel sheet and maybe we'll just do it together. Does that work? So let me see if I can do this here.
Which Excel of the ones that we've used with you should we
hold on. Let me see what I have here. I have an Excel that has a top sheet and the question. You would have in the final an Excel that gives you help with the top sheet. I did not provide an Excel for the answering of the question because I kind of wanted you to do your own. That said, if you did the final prep case study, you would have an Excel to be able to plug that in. I gave you guys a case study, just a suggested one. If you wanted to prep for this question, you would have had the Excel for that. So if you don't need to necessarily do this because I'm going to try to zero out my Excel. Hold on, file. Let me just save it as something else so I don't kill myself here. And then I'm going to do it together with you. Question 13, journey through the maze. Hold on a second. What am I doing? Hold on. Okay, budget. Okay, fine. File, save as. Question 13, journey through the maze. I'm going to call it template so we can do this together. So I'm going to have one of you, Jessica, are you still on?
Yeah.
I know you've done this already. When we put this together, if you can just give me the numbers so I can plug them in, that would be helpful.
Yeah, wait, let me get my.
Yeah. Because that way
So in the top sheet, or what numbers do you want?
We're starting with the top sheet.
Okay.
And I'm going to do that. I'm going to zero mine out. Hold on a second. File.
Which?
Hold on.
Sorry.
I'm going to tell you in a second. You're too fast. You're too fast. You're so German. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen now, but I'm going to zero everything out so that I don't show you what I have already. And then we're going to do this together. But I need, just one person to tell me what's what, because I don't have the case study in front of me. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I can tell you all the numbers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to put this in front of you guys. So let's start with the budget. So can you see my Excel in front of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Jessica, how much money am I putting in for story and rights?
25,000.
125,000?
25,000.
Oh, 25,000. Writing?
150,000.
You guys are clear what we're doing here. She's basically just reading the number that is in the case study as to what needs to go into the budget top sheet, okay? Next
75.
one, 75,000.
Mm-hmm.
Producers and staff.
850,000.
Director and staff.
250,000.
Talent.
2,500,000.
Okay, so you all should have a below the line of 3.850. Yeah.
I'm sorry to pause this for a sec. The numbers I'm using are from the Journey to Bali, from the module before this one, for the final prep suggested assignment one. Is that the right numbers we're supposed to pull from?
No, the Journey to Bali is this was your final prep assignment to do one case study that will be similar to the number 13 question. So this was just for you to kind of do a little run through of what you will be facing now. What
So where are the numbers from?
Is basically the numbers that are provided in the final. So when you look at your final, you're going to see the budgeted numbers that are listed there, and they're going to be different than what you have in your final prep case study, because the final has slightly different assumptions.
Sorry,
Yeah?
I see it. All good.
Yeah?
I found it. We're great.
Very good. No, I'm glad you're asking the question, because someone else might be looking for them too. So what Jessica is doing, she's basically just reading to me what the question 13 assumptions are, so I can plug them in as you would.
Totally. I just couldn't find where those numbers were coming from, and I just found the other final beyond the one you sent out last night. So I see it. We're good. Fantastic.
Yay. All right. Perfect.
I'm glad you see it, Isaac, because I still don't see it.
Lord, open up go to your module in your Canvas and download the final from there. There is a PDF.
Yes.
Just download that.
Yeah.
When you go down.
Oh, it's a PDF or a PowerPoint?
You can use both. It doesn't matter. You can use what I sent you yesterday, or you can use the final, which is the final. The easiest thing to do is for you to go to your assignments, go to final, download the final as a PDF or a Word, whichever works, and just go to question 13.
Okay.
Because
just a heads up, the PowerPoint that you sent us does not have the budget line items. It's just the PDF or Word that has it.
Okay, so Lord, there you go. Forget the PowerPoint.
That's why.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense, because I was working with the PowerPoint and I'm like,
oh, I see. Yeah, because
why am I going
basically
crazy?
gave you guys the budget already. It's already in there. That's why. I gave you the budget number, what it should be. So we're putting the budget together right now, basically, and we're doing it all together. So what you're seeing in the final, what Jessica's reading to us is what the assumptions are that you're going to find in number 13. Jessica, production staff.
500,000.
500,000. How much do we spend for camera?
250,000.
Set construction.
25,000.
Locations,
50,000.
other production allowance.
5,200,000.
Okay, so our shooting period should be 6,025,000. Let's go to post-production. What do we have for editing?
320,000.
Editors are so cheap now. Film post.
260,000.
Visual effects.
320,000.
Music.
120,000.
Ups, nee, warte. 120. Other post-production.
650,000.
So post-production budget is 1.67. And then general expenses and fees.
250,000.
250. So everything else is kind of automatically calculated here. It's going to give us the finance fee, which is basically 10% of our subtotal when we put it together between the above the line and below the line. There is a formula in here already. The contingency is going to be a formula that is 5% of the below the line and above the line. The completion bond company is going to be 2% of the elements that we're actually bonding, and we took some out, which is why you see certain elements are, these are the elements I'm deducting. It says minus, minus, minus. So I'm excluding from the bond company my story rights, my writing, my development, my producer fees. I'm also excluding some legal fees. And that's why the bond is only charged on the budget minus the exclusions. Are we clear about how that works? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so all I did is I excluded certain fees that I don't need an insurance for. So why would I pay 2% on that? That's all I did. So we're coming to a budget of 13,719,105. So now when we look into our recoupment situation, I'm going to zero this stuff out too. I'm going to just zero all this because I want you to tell me this stuff. So we can go through this. Should be all zero now, yes. Budget cap. Hold on a second. Well, we get to that. So our sales estimates were 80% of the budget. So that's basically 80% of, hold on. Oops, stop. 80% of our budget is, oh, what's it doing? Hold on, hold on. I'm going to escape here. Escape. Oopsala. Now we're back. 80% of our budget. Our budget is 3 million. All I do is basically 80% times my budget. There we go. These are our sales estimates. The German pre-sale was 10%, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 10% of the budget again. And then they're giving us a down payment of 20%. So it automatically calculated the down payment of the 10% that Germany is paying. Italy is paying 7% of the budget. So I'm basically just doing 7% times the budget. And then it automatically calculates the down payment of 15% that we're getting from Italy. The UK is giving us 8% of the budget, so 8% times our budget. Calculate again the 20% down payment, and France is giving us 9% of the budget. So our pre-sales altogether should be, let's calculate this. This plus this plus this plus this should be the pre-sales. And then the down payment is all these down payments calculated. So that's how we got to the tier 1. And tier 1 are the territories that are valued higher by the bank as the one that are more bankable. So when we go to India and China, these are tier 2 territories that are valued a little lower in their bankability, but we're going to do the same. We're basically just allocating how much money we have. China is the same. So we have 0.5% from India and 0.5% from China, and the down payment is calculated, and it's also summing up what we have here. So when we do this, it's basically the summary of both of the tier 1 and tier 2 pre-sales. And then this is the summary of the tier 1 and tier 2 down payments. This is all we're getting right now, this amount. But we are paying the sales agent 6% of those pre-sale down payments, which is why the sales agent is getting $53,916 as a sales fee. So available for us is really only $844,000 right now. Any questions about this? Okay, let's go to the bank loan. So the bank loan says in our assumption that it gives us a certain percentage on tier 1 and a certain percentage on tier 2. And I'm just going to look up to make sure. Was it 92%, Jessica?
93.
93%. Okay, so that's correct. So in the assumption, it says for the tier 1 territories, the bank will give us 93% of our values. And in the tier 2 territories, the bank will only give us 60% of our values. So basically, we are taking 93% of our pre-sale summary here for tier 1. And then we're taking 60% of our pre-sale summary for, oops, should be an automatic here, hold on. For the tier 2 territories. Are we clear so far? How we get to the discount?
Yes.
So we're getting our summary for the pre-sales, and then we're deducting our down payment, and we're deducting the actual amount that we received, which is this one. We're not deducting this because the bank doesn't care about the sales fees we have to pay. They only care about the money that we already received, which they want to give us a loan for. So we're deducting the entire down payment here. So this is what we're left with at the gross pre-sale loan. And of course, we're paying an interest of 8%, which is why this is being deducted. So our net pre-sale loan is $3,239,958.71. Any questions about our net pre-sale loan, how we got there? So when we look at our gap, we're looking at the unsold territories. In the unsold territories, you arrive by taking your entire sales estimates and deducting your pre-sales. That's how you get the unsold territories. And that's how we get the 6,173,597.25. Of that, only 50% is applicable because the bank will never give us more than 50%. We're doing a little check here, and we're noticing that our budget cap is lower. So we're not going to get the $3,086,000. We're only going to get a maximum of 20% of the budget, which is why we're here applying the cap that is provided for as a rule by the bank. So that's why our budget cap is simply 20% of our budget. That's all it is. So that becomes our gap loan. And we're paying a little bit higher interest here because it's an unsecured loan, so we're paying 12%. So the net gap loan is $2,414,562.48. So we're putting together what we have to pay back, which is our gross loan amount. And we're defining all the fees that we have to pay, the loan fee, the legal fee. And we're looking at what's available at closing, which is this. Let me make sure this is correct. Yes, there we go. So the net bank loan is the bank loan where all the interests have been deducted. This bank loan available for us is loan fee and legal fee also deducted, which is what happens in reality. And here are all the other finance sources that we're getting. We're getting 15% of the budget as a mezzanine. The mezzanine lender is charging us 5%, so we're simply deducting this. Crowdfunding is giving us 5% of the budget, which is this. They're going to charge us a fee of 25%. They're going to also already deduct the $20,000 that they gave us during the development period. So we have to deduct that because we already got this, and it's assumption in the case study. And that's actually often the case that you get some of the crowdfunding money up front and you can do some development work, and then you of course have to deduct it. Brand integration, we got 650. We're paying a 25% fee on this. We end up with this, and we're only getting half of it right now at closing, and the other half for the brand integration is given to us when we get to the recoupment schedule. The production incentives are calculated only on the below the line portion. So we go to our budget, we look what's below the line, and the below the line of our budget was 7,695,000. So we put that in here, and then we get 35% of that. We have to pay a 10% fee and a 15% legal fee to our tax incentive lender. So we're left with 2,408,925 for our production incentive. The in-kind services in our case were the visual effects for 320 and the music for 440, but we're not adding that because this is a service. It's not actual cash available to us. It's just money that we're not getting. And this is why this amount is deducted from our budget and relieving us, getting us to the strike price. So our budget kind of lowers to the strike price because we're not having to pay this. So we're looking at our subtotal to reach the strike price, which is this amount. And in order to get to that, we have to figure out what's our equity. So
I think the subtotal, I don't know.
It's
maybe
wrong?
Looks wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, let me look at that.
It should be the 11.4 million that's on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, am I missing something? What am I
Yeah, when
missing?
you click it, maybe you just maybe forgot to summarize like whatever one of the items like brand integration or mezzanine loan or.
It should be the same, exactly. Why the hell? Ja, okay.
Maybe it didn't, maybe vielleicht hat es das nicht mit aufsummiert, wenn du mal guckst in der Formel.
I believe that the
E71.
interest on the gap loan is different.
Okay.
I think you have 12% and it should be 6%.
Hold on, gap loan is different?
No, it's 12.
I think your previous formula was just missing the addition of E71, which is the mezzanine loan.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm looking at the Word document. It says 6% interest per year.
But it's for 2 years.
Yes, it's for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to sum this up. This one plus brand integration plus crowdfunding plus mezzanine plus closing with bank plus this. What am I missing anything else? No, there we go. That's it. Okay. We did it. So then here I'm going to take my strike price, this one, and I'm deducting all the finance sources that I have. It should be this one. It hopefully gives me the same amount. Yes, so the equity is 1,834,484. Any questions about this so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you go to your mezzanine
Yes. Mezzanine.
section?
Okay, here.
Okay, so 15%, I'm getting a different number. Is that 15% of the strike price or the budget?
Well, it's 50% of the strike price. I think it's defined as that in the assumptions
Got
for
it.
mezzanine,
Okay.
where it says the mezzanine lender gives you 15% of the strike price budget versus the budget. That's why the number might be different. Yes. Any other questions on this one so far? Good. Then we can go to the recoupment sheet. So here we have our sales estimates. We're deducting our down payment. We are left with 10,076,000. So now we go to the fun part of domestic. So we have $20 million that we are getting in box office. 45% of that goes to the theater owner in this case, so we're deducting that. So we're left with 11 million. Remember, this is a rent-a-studio deal. This is basically us renting the studio. We're renting the services of a studio to do the release. So we basically are, in essence, also releasing. So that's why for us it's important what we have to pay to the exhibitor, to the theater owner, and they want us to pay them 45%, so we're deducting this. So we're left with 11 million, and then we have a P&A investor who gave us $2,500 per screen. Well, hold on, it gave us $1,500 per screen. So our P&A loan would be $2,250,000. We have to pay 12.5% on that, which then leaves us with $8,468,000. We're paying Paramount 25% as a fee, and we're left with this US revenue. Any questions on this?
I think in this case it's Warner Brothers.
Or is it Warner Brothers? I want to change that. Warner Brothers. Okay. So I'm basically here for the worldwide revenues. I'm just adding the domestic that I'm left with and my international that I'm left with. And that's why I get my worldwide distribution revenues. I'm adding the branding that I'm still owed. That's how I get to $16 million, 39, 182, 62 in total revenues. Any questions on this part? Guys, you're so good. So we know how this works. We put together our expenses. We pay the collection agent 1%. There was also a setup fee mentioned in the case study, I believe, of $40,000, which they sometimes charge the collection agent, just so you know. Putting that in there. Then we have our bank loan, the gross bank loan. The guilds were listed to be receiving $850,000. The sales agent charged us 16% on the unsold rights, 6% on the pre-sales. The mezzanine is charged with the premium and the producer fee that they want, which is in the case study. The equity wants its premium of 20%. And then we have deferments for in-kind services who also want a premium on their deferment. So our expenses altogether should be $13,538,417.70. Any questions on this part? You guys are good. Leaving us with net revenue of 22.5, and then we're basically here paying all our profit participants. We know how to do this. Everyone gets a piece of the revenue, which leaves us with $600,183.58. Questions on this? Isaac is still looking. Isaac, you have questions? Isaac says yes. Good. If Isaac is happy, I'm happy. All good. All right, so that concludes our final. Yay, everyone. Good job. Thank you, Jessica, for your help. I'm glad you're here with us today. So what I would like to do now is any one of you ready to share their screen and share their project with me?
We are.
Yay. All right, let me cancel this out. I'm gonna get rid of all this. I'm gonna get rid of all this because I don't need to be sharing anything. So let me just cancel all this out. Stop share, thank you. Okay, so who said we are?
I did.
Yo, Isaac. I'm gonna make you a co-host.
Oh, wow, power.
Co-host. Let me make you a co-host. Who else do I make a co-host in your group?
I would say the only other people sharing would be, actually, I have all the material and I can just do it.
So why don't you share with everyone? And then I'm so excited. Thank you for doing this. And then
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yay! Project time.
All right.
I've got some really good pitch decks. I'm gonna even use some of those for my next course, if that's okay with you guys, because there's such great examples.
Sure,
You did
we'll
a really good job, I mean, visually and stuff. There were some really good ones. All right, put my book out of the way here.
Okay, so ours kind of jumps from Keynote to PDFs to websites. So follow us on this journey. So my group, the participant, actually, let's just bring up the title cover page. I'd like to introduce Jude, Paula, Abigail, Sabine, Lauren, and Susanna as my co-partners on this group project.
Hey, hi you guys. Thank you for doing this.
We will go through it, and entertain you while you ponder giving us money. Okay. Ooh.
Ooh, sexy. Nice.
Okay, so our project is called We Keep the Dead Close, based on the book by Becky Cooper.
So our logline is: a young Harvard student is murdered by her archaeology professor turned lover as part of an archaic ritual. Decades later, one of his students suspects he's the culprit.
This is our synopsis. I don't know if Jeanette, you'd want us to read it or...
Yeah, read it to me. Read it to everyone so that I can make notes.
Okay, Abigail.
All right. So Becky Cooper is a junior at Harvard when she hears the story of Jane Britton, a Harvard archaeology student who was murdered by her professor turned lover. She was beaten to death with an artifact stolen from the university's own Peabody Museum, and then her body was draped in ancient jewelry and sprinkled with red ochre pigment in an archaic funeral ritual. Becky hears that the university covered up the murder and thwarted police investigation, and she becomes determined to solve the mystery herself. Becky quickly becomes obsessed with Jane's life. She interviews her ex-boyfriend, friends, the police who investigated her death. She goes on an archaeological dig in Bulgaria for a month to emulate Jane's studies into Near Eastern archaeology. Upon returning to Harvard, Becky sits in a class taught by the professor rumored to have committed the crime. When he says the dead are kept close to you, Becky suspects he may actually be the real killer and begins to investigate his life. When she learns he's ultimately innocent, Becky languishes in defeat, but the Me Too movement is gaining momentum, and classmates begin confiding in her horror stories of professors harassing them and abuses of power within the university. And Becky has to untangle both her obsession with Jane's murder and the myriad of sexual harassment cases against women that Harvard is complicit in and actively suppressing investigation into. She learns that Jane was murdered by a local man not connected to Harvard at all, but he died before police reopened the cold case.
Wow. Does that book actually exist? Is that a real book?
Yes, it does. We found an article, Lauren actually found the article on the New York Times that wrote up about the book. So I'm going to purchase it.
Yeah, so will I.
So because our movie travels from the past to the present, we have a mix of characters. So in our present tense characters, we have Becky Cooper, the intrepid Harvard student who hears about this mystery, is encouraged to learn more. We have Adrienne Lynch, who's the chief of homicide, and she's the one who's sort of front and center with the press because now this murder investigation is getting new life in the present tense, so she's updating everybody. We have Sergeant Peter Sino. He's the criminal forensics guy who's really giving us the trail of clues along with the murder and really keeping people abreast of what's going on behind the scenes. In the past, we have Jane Britton. She's our beautiful archaeology student who loves reading books and is always found rummaging through dusty archives. And so she's this really good student who apparently doesn't make it to one of her exams, and that really starts the murder because she's found dead in her apartment. And then we have Karl Lambert Karlofsky. He is the archaeology professor. He's this guy with a lot of machismo. He's this star on campus. He also is rumored to have an affair with many people on campus, of which Jane is potentially one of them. And then we have James. He is Jane's boyfriend, and he stays really close to her and is goes on a bunch of digs around the world, and he was the last person to see Jane alive. And then for our cast, we have a mix of A-star cast for the present tense, present time, and then we have a mix of sort of up-and-comers for the past. And that's how we saw a mix of bankable with new to sort of gauge interest and funding. So for our new present day, we have Haley Steinfeld playing Becky Cooper, Mark Ruffalo playing Peter Sino, Frances McDormand we saw as sort of Adrienne Lynch, sort of like with class and pizzazz. And then for our pastime and up-and-comer cast, we have George McKay playing James the boyfriend, Thomasin McKenzie is going to play Jane Britton, and then James Norton is going to be the boyfriend. And something key for this, because this is a woman's story and this is just the theater of the times, we wanted to have a great female director. So we have Suzanne Beer.
Some of the creative team we put together and we've been in contact with, and they've already agreed once the financing is in place. We have a production designer, Joel Collins. He's known for his dark materials. He's also Black Mirror, luscious visual imagery. Abigail recommended him. Director of photography, we have Yves Belanger. He's done a lot of great period pieces as well as thrillers in the present. Costume designer, we have experienced April Napier. She's done indies to big studios, ranging in different genres and styles. And then an editor, we have someone who's well versed in period pieces, but also present day thrillers, Ben Lester. As co-production considerations, let us go through our lists. We have Bronze Studios. They're basically a mini studio and they have a great repertoire of films. They finance indies from $1 million to big projects like Joker to 90 million. Participant, they also do 10 to 40 in terms of their budget range, and we think that our project would fit well within their catalog. Alcon as well. Ours is more on the low side of what they normally do. We'll get to the budget later. However, we think that with our incredible creative package, this would fit in quite well with them. Good Universe is kind of like a CC backup. In case of anything, they do great director-driven films. I can't move my mouse, so I can't read the rest of it because all of your faces are there. One moment. Moving the faces. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. So yeah, Good Universe, and they do 10 to 40. They do comedies, they do dramas, and Old Boy, which is a thriller. This could fit in with their catalog as well. AGC Studios. It seems like they're kind of not up and coming, because I mean, they have a huge, they did The Rhythm Section with Blake Lively, directed by Reed Morano, and then they have The Secrets We Keep, which is a thriller, and then they have a film coming out next year from the director of The Help, Breaking News in Yuba County, with Allison Janney and a whole bunch of other casts, and we think that this would fit great within their catalog as well. And then 101 Studios, they're a brand new company within the past 3 years. They have an annual $300 million film fund as well as television fund, and they're just looking to build their company. They are all ex-Weinstein Company members who like worked under Harvey, and so I think they're trying to just rebuild their name, and they're putting more effort into projects that are female-driven narratives to kind of, and yeah, let's take their money.
Yeah, good one.
In terms of the relevancy today, true crime is a huge blockbuster across global markets, and over half of Americans today say they're really interested in true crime as a form of entertainment, especially because true crime films are multi-layered. They're not just crime stories. They really tap into topics on human behavior, social issues, taboos, and especially with this one, busting patriarchal systems. And audiences are really used to that blend of documentary and drama programming, because this particular project touches a real life investigation. So you really get to feel like you're part of the experience as the homicide detectives and Becky goes through the journey of unpacking this whodunit. And so there's a multi-tiered strategy here with true crime. They're on podcasts, TV shows, really popular Netflix series, and there's a really huge marketing opportunities attached to it. There are crime cruises and crime events all around the world.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you, Jeanette, when I meant to mute myself. So sorry.
I cannot believe you want to shut me up. Why?
I'm done though.
Oh my God.
It's a pass. Go ahead.
All right. For our marketing strategy, we started by building a target audience profile based on, you can go back, based on data collected around true crime fans and their common interests and habits. So based on that information, we derived our target audience's key demographics. You can see that their age range being between 18 to 34. You have 65% female, 35% male. What their most probable education level is, marital status. And then for their key psychographics, we get a look into, can go back.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Psychographics. So we get a look into our audience's habits around media and content consumption, what values they hold, topics of interest to them, and of course, most importantly, what their preferred genres are, which are drama, crime, mysteries, and thrillers in this case. Now you can go on to the next slide. And then we also determined some advertisement channels, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Reddit that we know are being used by our target audience, as well as specific TV channels and popular true crime podcasts, as we mentioned, that we know our target audience are likely to be watching or listening to. And we'll also be targeting specific locations to advertise at, like college campuses, dormitories, and CrimeCon. And for those who don't know, CrimeCon is an annual convention for the true crime fan base, which there's a chance there to advertise not just the film, but also the original book. And so with that in mind, I'll let Paula walk us through the actual marketing plan.
Yes, so in efforts to keep marketing costs manageable, most of this film will be marketed digitally, as most of our audience spends about 10 to 18 hours a day in front of screens consuming content. So those categories include digital marketing, which are the social media channels, which are email campaigns, the influencer, avenue. A digital marketing company that I really like is Ribbo Media Group, and we've spoken with them to partner on this film. They're popular for the digital campaigns for Hacksaw Ridge and Dear White People, amongst a couple of other popular titles. Digital advertising, standard YouTube pre-roll video ads on streaming platforms, social media. We have a really cool TikTok challenge breakdown that would be really cool to kind of just gauge, again, that millennial audience, memes, Google AdWords, and then traditional advertising like newspapers, magazines, airport banners, different themed escape rooms, some virtual VR experiences, and standard conferences and mystery conferences and things like that. You're muted, Isaac.
For some reason, my mouse disappears, so I can't click things, and it's really cool. Anyway, so because this is a Harvard story, we are interested in shooting in Massachusetts. Massachusetts provides filmmakers with highly competitive package of tax incentives because they give us 25% production credit in addition to 25% payroll credit. And they have a sales tax exemption if we spend more than $50,000 in the state. Given that our budget is more than $50,000, mission accomplished.
So for our brand partnerships, we've secured agreements with 8 brands at $50,000 per placement, with the exception of Lincoln Automotive Group and Ralph Lauren at $100,000 each. So total, that will be $500,000 under brand integration. Some of the brands that we have chosen to partner with are Tiffany & Co. for their eyewear selection. They're really known for their jewelry, but their eyewear section is not as popular, so this would be a great marketing opportunity for them as well. Starbucks, Lincoln Automotive, Lufthansa Airline, Lulu, I do not know, I forget how to pronounce this athletic.
Lululemon, yes.
Lululemon.
Love it.
That will be the attire worn by our lead character and other college students. Ralph Lauren, Insomnia Cookies. For those not familiar with Insomnia Cookies, they're a popular bakery brand in college towns targeting college students. And then Brick House Security, which is a premier supplier of surveillance tools. After the film is completed, we have ancillary partnerships with the makers of Clue. Their name is Hasbro, for a game version of the Harvard or the college edition version of Clue.
Nice.
Okay, so for our comparable films, we went through a list of movies that were made in the last 5 years that have similar genres, are based on true stories, and ones that address similar themes and topics to our film. The films you see here, Spotlight, Molly's Game, Just Mercy, and All the Money in the World, were all financially successful according to the numbers reported. But then in addition to our top four, Isaac, if you can move on, to our top four comparables, we found other current relevant titles like Lost Girls, The Tale, The Assistant, and Promising Young Woman that have found success and managed to create some sort of buzz, but no data has been reported yet. They simply indicate that there is, in fact, a demand for them in the market.
So for our film, we identified a budget of 20.5 million. And there are two things I would like to highlight. First, we allocated about 40% to our cast. That was really important to us because we chose an A-level cast and we think that will attract the viewers. We have, luckily, we don't have too many special effects, so we have a small special effects budget for some of the funeral rituals that we want to kind of spruce up a little bit, but otherwise we kept that relatively small. If we could go to the next page, we can see from our sales estimates that we were able to have 75% of our budget covered by our international sales estimates at the take level. We also did some pre-sales already. We primarily in the tier 1 territories. The territories are currently Australia, Benelux, actually France, Germany, Iceland, Italy, and Scandinavia, as well as the UK. Which we all identified as countries that were extremely interested in true crime stories. So that was very good. On this sales sheet, we also, which is not always done, but we included the United States because we are in negotiations about that. So we already identified an ask and take level sales estimate, but we are still in negotiations.
I'm not hearing anything. Someone talking?
Susanna, you
Susanna's on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted. Okay, so here we are. Our budget is $25,500,000. We are super lucky. Our sales agent was able to do a few defined pre-sales for us at the take price level. So let's look at the finance plan evaluation. The pre-sales were completed with the distributors from the countries France, Germany, Austria, Italy, UK, Scandinavia, where apparently the crime films are very popular, and Australia and New Zealand. So those tier 1 territories are well-performing countries. And altogether, we end up with a total of $8,097,500. So as you can see, the down payment that we're getting from these distributors is 10% of the pre-sales, which is $809,750. This down payment is going to be released to us in full because the sales agent agreed to defer sales fees into recoupment. So we get to keep the entire down payment. So let's look at our unsold rights on the take level. The number is 7,449,700 we are going to use when negotiating with the banks. And the US distribution rights are going to be sold after the film is released at the estimated 35% of the budget. That is, in this case, 7,175,100. The gross worldwide distribution rights should end up being 22,722,200. But first, we need to get our movie financed, and that is why we're going to get a bank loan. So we will start with our senior loan. The bank is going to give us 90% of the tier 1 pre-sales. Unfortunately, we weren't able to sell it in the tier 2 territories. So we're only going to use the 90% of our tier 1 pre-sales, which in this case is 7,287,750. And that will be our total. We did receive our down payment already, so therefore the gross pre-sales loan is going to be $6,478,000. The bank is charging a 7% of this asset-backed loan, and that will be $388,680, and that is getting us to the net pre-sale loan of $6,089,320. So we are keeping that pre-sales loan in order to finance the production. The next loan that we are getting is the gap loan. We took the unsold rights at the take level, and 50% of that will be our $3,724,850. and $850. However, the bank is not going to give us more than 20% of the budget, and because they never do. And so in this case, 20% percentage of our budget is $4,100,000, and that we can apply as the cap. As we can see, our 50% is lower than the budget cap, but we are still going to take that loan even if it's collateral, if the collateral is lower than the cap. Is that everything is clear until now? Yeah, okay. So we really want to make our movie, so we take that and we are adding to it 8% of the interest, so we're ending up with the $3,772,000 net gap loan. The total gross of the bank loan we will have to pay back is $10,578,000, and the total net of the money we're actually getting to cover our production is $9,861,320. We're moving to our mezzanine loan, and our mezzanine lender wants to pay us 10% of the strike price budget. We're so lucky to get a deal on our in-kind service and the music investment that puts the number of our budget down to $20,050,000. $50,000. Yeah. So the 10% of that strike budget that we will be getting as a junior loan is going to be $2,005,000. We're going to be charged the executive producer's fee of that executive producer's fee of $20,000 and the interest of $50,000. We want to deduct those fees from the investment, which is why we will be receiving $1,935,000 to cover our production costs. The production incentive that is based on our actual expenses. So we're shooting most of our film in Massachusetts, as Isaac mentioned. So we qualify for 25% of our production expenses credit. After deducting that 15%, that is going to be the lender is going to the lender agency, and $80,000 of the legal fee, we end up with $4,190,625. We are getting our sponsorship and integration amount that Paula negotiated for us, and which is $500,000. And after the agency fee, we have $425,000. The sponsors gives us only 50% on the closing and other 50% when we deliver the movie. This time we didn't initiate a crowdfunding because we decided that our budget might be a little bit too big for it. And taking under consideration the circumstances of COVID, etc., we figured that it might not be ethical to reach out to our communities asking for money. So we don't have that in our budget, but we negotiated with the crew and with the few cast members deferred deals, and we managed to get $300,000 on the in-kind service as well as the music investment. And so one of our producer's friend, Alex Ebert, he's the recipient of the Golden Globe Award for the Best Original Score. And his music company is very interested in our project, and they want to cover the music budget of $150,000. So after summarizing all the finance sources available and deducting all the finance sources from our strike price, we get a balance of $3,040,805 that we are going to get covered as the equity investment. When we're looking at our recruitment schedule, we can see the estimated numbers with our already pre-sale prices. We hope that we will be able to sell our film for the worldwide gross distribution revenues of $22,124,950, including the brand integration of the other 50% that we get after we make the film. So after deducting all the expenses and the profit participation, we end up with a balance of $1,770,108.99 that we're equally split between 7 of us, and that gives us $252,872.71. And this is the estimated number. We would still need to apply all the costs of the boxes of P&A and other fees. And if we decide to do theatrical release, but we still not sure, as Sabine mentioned earlier, we're still pitching our project to Netflix and to other platforms. So that's
great.
This is where we're at now.
So projected returns, box office projections are around $22,730,000 and well, $30,052. Unsold territories are $14,624,700. So total box office revenue are those two numbers together, $37,354,752. We are planning to additional sources of revenue, transactional video on demand companies like iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Video. Those platforms allow the filmmakers to keep 70% of all of the rental sales, as well as subscription video on demand platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu. Those are based on a flat rate where they license the film for a certain amount of time. So we are exploring those options as well. And as Susanna mentioned, we are in talks with Netflix preliminarily.
And for our risk and mitigation strategy, who we are so we are the group of producers and friends that we met at UCLA. It's our first feature that we're working on together. Each of us has different set of skills and experience, which makes us a really great team. So that about us. So we know each other and we know our previous work. We trust each other, and I think that makes us a really good team that you can trust us with the money that you're going to invest. So we do have feasible finance plan that includes balance percentage, in relation to the budget and other, additional to brand integration and sponsorship in-kind services that we mentioned before. We came up with that finance plan, which protects not only us, but also you, investors. And we used a combination of loans on, we sacrificed some of the control and upside potential due to the loss of the equity. We are using mezzanine financing to reduce the investor equity, and this delivers a risk diversification, especially when we work on more than one project at the same time. And it also assures us, the producer, that our investors are not subject to deals we cannot control. Our director is we decided to work with woman director because, as mentioned before, we are all about supporting the women perspective in storytelling. We're using the other strategy, mitigation strategy, is we're using completion bonds, and the insurance company that insures our production against the budget overages and ensured on-time delivery of our project to the distributor who pays on delivery. The last two are the milestone written in agreements. So we are making sure that all the agreements will be written down in the contracts, and we will make sure that the project is economically viable and their profit estimations justifies the necessary investment. And we're using those two pictures just to make it more clear. Are there any questions from you, Jeanette, or you guys?
Yes, I have notes, but let's finish.
That was awesome, you guys.
My God. Bravo! Great.
It was really amazing. It's like, wow, when is this coming out?
Let me give you some feedback on this. Content. So I haven't read the book, so I don't know about the content. I'm just going to start with creative feedback. So when you do a project that is about someone killing someone, there's two ways of doing it. You can do it where we know in the beginning who the murderer is, and we announce who the murderer is, only to find out in the end it's someone else. One way of doing it. The other way is we don't know who the murderer is. We think it's someone else, and it's someone else. Also okay. From how you did the log line as well as the summary, it wasn't clear which one it is. So I would decide on a storytelling that tells me, okay, this is we are working on a case, and it was at the time this was the murder, but it turns out it's someone else. Or this woman was murdered. Here's the circumstances, and with following her on her path, giving us whatever different reasons as to why this one's not the one and that one is the one. But whatever path you're choosing, whatever content path you're choosing, make it clear what that is. To me, it wasn't clear, honestly, but maybe that's just me. When you mentioned these co-production partners, which I think is a great idea. Blumhouse, by the way, would also potentially be good, but 20 million might be a little high for them. These co-production partners might have relationship with distributors already. They might have relationships or deals with like a Netflix or a studio or whatnot. If you mention co-producing partners, I would also mention their relationships to a potential distributor that you could be monetizing from. So just keep that in mind for the future. By the way, you don't need to mention many. You could maybe mention two and just say, here are the two parties we are negotiating with, and just pretend you're already negotiating with them. Okay, your audience. I love the way you laid out the audience. I mean, this marketing plan is very detailed, it also shows me, it tells me more about what you're doing with the movie, because it sets a framework for the movie, because now I know, okay, this is the audience you're going for, which makes me understand the project better, which is fantastic. So I really liked what you did there. Now, in your budget, because you haven't mentioned P&A and how you're going to finance this budget, this marketing campaign, I would add, in a situation like this, I would add some of this marketing cost into your budget. Because you don't know if you're going to get P&A, you don't know what you're going to do, but you do know you're going to want to reach these people, and you've already planned to reach these people with some marketing money that you're going to put in the budget. So this is a movie where, based on your marketing strategy, I would actually allocate some marketing money in the budget. When you mention later on, you mentioned box office, and then you mention international unsold rights. Box office is box office, unsold rights is unsold rights. So you can't put that together where you said worldwide box office. What you can say is worldwide distribution revenues, but you can't say worldwide box office, because worldwide box office would be worldwide theatrical ticket sales. That's what box office means, right? So the one thing where it got confusing for me is where you did the box office. I would keep that out. I wouldn't talk about box office because you don't need to. I would talk about what your plan is for the domestic, and you already said that you want to sell the domestic for about 35% of your budget. You don't need to mention anything else. What I do like is that you are going into rental sales. So what you could do is you could say we are selling the first run for 35%, and then we're also allowing potential rental sales, because you can't do both. You can't do 35% minimum guarantee and then it goes to someone who then does the rental sales. You could do a first run with the studio for 35%, and then you could do simultaneously or after that rental sales. Or you tell us we're going to do rental sales, and here's what those could be, and here's why they're what they are, because in this case we're estimating iTunes giving us 70%, we're estimating these many viewers, so we're thinking this is going to be a rental income. You can do that too in exchange for the 35% of the budget from the US. So you either do rental sales and estimate what they are, or you do a US 35% and do rental sales as a second term. Does that make sense? Yeah, I hope I'm not being too confusing. And then you talked about the track record. The track record, I would simply just use your names, your bios, and then use the director, and then the team that you have is also track record driven, because you have a great costume designer, you have a great set construction. Those people are really your track record people. So those I would use when it comes to team. I would call it team and track record, and would just use that one page that you have. And
yeah, I was confused. Yeah? You meant us personally, or and then my group was like, put the creative team together. I'm like, okay, I'm great.
No, you could have basically done you, like with one-liners that specifies who you are, what you do, what you're specifying in. Then you have your director. Then you have your I think you had a special costume designer, set construction. All these things that support the visual mood and the visual tone of the movie. So that's all great for track record, but you need to name that. And then you had this risk mitigation page. That was confusing. You don't actually need to spell it out like that. The only thing you say when you talk about risk mitigation is you're just going to say, first of all, you also didn't have an ROI for the investor. So I, as the investor, have no idea how much money I'm making. What am I making? How much money am I getting? So that ROI/mitigation page could be one informational page where you say, here's our offer for the equity investor. A, we're going to insure the movie for production and budget overages, completion bond. Second thing is, here's the finance plan is diversified between these elements, and you equity investor, if this is for the equity investor, you would be giving me so and so much money. You're going to get 20% premium. You're going to get this much in profit participation, and that will get you to an ROI of this. So I would keep that in mind, that you put the ROI in there. And if you offer milestones, tell me what those are. Just give me a kind of overview. So a milestone would be, for example, we are allowing the equity investor to approve material terms. Material terms would be something like, I'm changing the budget, I'm changing the distribution, and I'm changing my finance plan, or I'm changing my cast or my director. Those are the material terms. So you can say equity investors are allowed to approve any change of material terms, including budgeting, distribution, and creative elements. You can say something like that. That would be a milestone. The other stuff you can forget about. You don't need. What else? That's really all there is. Visually, it's very beautiful. Let me just go here. Visually, it's very beautiful. I really liked everything you did. It was a very appealing presentation, and truly well done. So thank you very much for sharing that. Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So maybe we should, I don't know if there is one more, if we have time for one more. Is there someone else who wants to share?
We do. We also have a few people missing now from that group. So,
oh, I'm so sorry. Do you still want to share though, or not?
What do you think, y'all?
Do it.
Come on.
Jeanette, I have a question on their presentation with respect to the gap. Because they had identified that they only had about 3.7 million in unsold collateral, and they elected to choose 20% of the budget instead, which that didn't make sense to me.
I had a hard time seeing the numbers. So let me just ask you this, Isaac. Was the collateral lower than the budget cap, or was it higher than the budget cap?
Sabine, I'm going to delegate this to you.
I think that's Susanna in the finance plan.
Susanna, tell me what the unsold rights was.
Unsold rights. 1 second.
All the
it's 7,449,000 and 700,000.
So the half would be about 3 million. And then what's the budget cap?
The budget, it's 4,100,000.
Okay. So here's what you did. You chose the higher number, correct?
Yes, okay. So that was my,
thank you for this.
I wasn't sure.
This is a very good. See, I didn't even notice because I'm so blind.
So I usually, if I don't reach a cap, I always go with a lower number.
It goes the other way, yes. Because here's what you have to think about. If you choose the higher number, the bank is not going to have 200% collateral. Can't do that. So you have to choose the number that gives you 200% collateral for the bank. So
I go with the I go actually with that 50% and not
50% collateral and choose that as your gap loan. Very good catch, John. Thank you. I didn't catch that. So for all of you to know, if you have unsold rights that are higher than your budget cap would be, then you use the budget cap.
Okay.
You can't use the budget cap if it's higher than the unsold, because otherwise you don't have enough. The bank would not recoup then. Okay, good catch. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have one that you're going to share with us, a deck that you really appreciate, that you wouldn't mind sharing with us so that we can...
me?
That? Yes, I mean just in past classes that you also appreciated.
Here's the thing. I don't have one right this minute.
Okay.
I did give some examples in the modules of stuff that works. I can send one that I have done. I can send one through that I have done through the course. Great. Just for one of the series that I'm actually doing one right now for a series that I'm putting together. So I'll share that with all of you. We're actually working on this. So you have an actual one right now that we're doing for a show that we are producing.
Great. And I just wanted to also relay, I had a pitch the other day and I started bringing in facts and figures and it was more of a creative pitch and their eyes glazed over and they actually said to stop. We want to hear more on the creative. So I just wanted to say, don't get too excited about the numbers if it's a creative.
All right. Good point. Good point, Darren. There are two audiences for pitches. One is a creative group, like when you go to a network, when you go to see an agent, when you go to a buyer that's a distributor, anyone who makes a creative decision, you don't need to go into that much detail with your numbers because they don't care. If it's a network, they pay for the budget. They hardly even want to know what the budget is. So that's exactly right. So you go more into characters, you go more into creative, you go more into the mood. The pitch would be shorter. You also wouldn't have probably more than 10 minutes to pitch, not here where we go into such detail. What we're talking about here is basically a business plan. It's more for investors. This is what you would give to someone like me or any co-producer or any investor who would want to invest in your movie because they want to know the creative side, they want to know the track record, they want to know the numbers, they want to know how much money they're making, they want to know how they're being protected. That's a business plan pitch deck. It's a larger document. The creative pitch is usually it's probably half the size. So it's much less in size. Number one, and number two, there is not much information about the financials. There will be information ideally about the target audience. There's not necessarily information even about a marketing strategy because again, that's up to the buyer or distributor who would buy it, how they want to market it. So there are slightly different versions of things depending on who you're pitching to. Very good point, Darren. Thank you very much. Okay, Jeremy, are you going to do this or what?
Yeah, I guess so. Let's do it.
Go do it. And that'll be the last one now because I don't want to drag you on too much. Anyone else who wants to share their pitch with me on a Zoom can do that. If you want to do a presentation so I can give you direct feedback, just email me and then we'll set a Zoom and you can share it just with me and I'll give you feedback right here and there like I did with these guys. So just know you have that option. Jeremy, hold on, Jeremy, I need to make you a co-host.
Great.
Oh.
Hopefully there aren't too many presenter holes in this presentation, but all right, great. Sharing screen now. All right, can everyone see the deck?
Yeah.
Great.
Jeremy, do you want me to lead off?
Sure.
Great.
Here we go, cool.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to be pitching you Bloodline. And we know that as investors, your time is short, so we'll keep this fairly brief. But this is by Normal Avenue Productions, which is a 12-person production team. Next slide, please. So I'm going to present the story, and then I'll hand it over to my fellow producers to walk you through the cast, the tone and marketing, and the finance plan. Next slide. The story. There's an original story. The introduction is that Bloodline is a grounded science fiction action thriller. We think that an action thriller is a very successful genre, especially for the international marketplace. This has an A-list cast that we believe is highly relevant during these uncertain times, especially with the global pandemic. We think that all eyes are focused on COVID and the vaccine, and there's more and more interest in biotech. The logline. A young medical scientist races to find an experimental cure for leukemia, but is running out of time. As pressure mounts to prove it works, he considers a dangerous option that could speed up development, but put lives at risk, including his own. Next slide. So the story summary, I mentioned this is a grounded science fiction action thriller. It's the story of Chris Chen. He's a young physician scientist who is brilliant, but he's also a little strange. By day, he is covered with head-to-toe clothing and makes regular trips to the blood bank, causing his friends and family to wonder what's going on. By night, he works feverishly at a biotech startup to find an experimental therapy based on Nobel Prize-winning CRISPR technology. You all might have heard of Jennifer Doudna from UC Berkeley, who recently won the Nobel Prize for the invention of this game-changing technology. In this case, Dr. Chen is trying to potentially cure leukemia, but he is running out of time as pressure mounts to prove his technology works in patients before it is ready. Chris considers a dangerous option that could speed up development, but put lives at risk, including his own. Pressured by his boss to work faster, he throws caution to the wind and forges ahead. Everything seems fine at first, but the new therapy works so well that Chris's company prepares to go public. But then strange side effects of the therapy start to emerge. Everything Chris believes is called into question, putting his faith and resolve to the ultimate test. So we have a link to the full beat sheet, but we won't bore you with that. So I'll hand it off to my fellow producers to walk you through the rest.
Jonathan, I think on the cast portion, you're probably still the best informed on who to, on the slides, just based on who's available to present.
Okay, so in terms of cast, with the lead role is for Chris Chen. We are casting Louis Tan, who is a great choice because of his former credits at Wu Assassins, Deadpool to Mortal Kombat. Very physical actor, can do martial arts, which also is a key component of the story. His wife is a very sassy, strong female lead character, and we believe that Constance Wu, most notably recently from Crazy Rich Asians, was very successful internationally. So we think this could be a really strong draw with a diverse cast. Next slide. Jennifer Doudna, I mentioned that she recently won the Nobel Prize for CRISPR, which is the key technology. So we think that Jodie Foster, an Academy Award winner, and nominee for Silence of the Lambs, is a strong choice for that. Matt Fisher works in the lab with Chris Chen, and so we think that James McAvoy is a really strong choice for that. And then Dr. Imani Robinson is a hematologist oncologist, which is a important character in this story. Especially she actually is the physician of Chris Chen in the story, and we think that Viola Davis would be awesome for that. There's a question of faith, and Chris Chen during the story really wrestles with that. And so there's a character named Pastor Tom who we think that Richard Armitage could play this, most notably from the Hobbit trilogy. And then the antagonist is a biotech billionaire named RB, and we think that Michael Caine could really play that quintessential bad guy. For director, we went through a long list, but really who rose to the top was Duncan Jones, and he's the director of Moon, Mute, Source Code, and Warcraft. What we like about him is that he's really focused his career largely on the sci-fi fantasy genre, and this being a grounded science fiction, we think he's very, it's right up his alley. He's been very selective about his projects and is potentially someone whom we could build a franchise of movies around. So in the event that Bloodline spawns future sequels, we would want some continuity there rather than having a rotating list of directors. We think Source Code is a great comp in terms of being a cerebral sci-fi type of movie, which is what Bloodline is intended to be. Similar size budget of 32 million with really strong worldwide box office performance. But he's also done larger budget movies like Warcraft. So if the first movie is successful, then he does have high success and good track record on a worldwide basis. The producer and director vision, really at its heart, this is a very human story. So there's a lot of high-tech elements, but Bloodline builds on that, but really also builds on the humanity at the core. So this is about Nobel Prize winning CRISPR technology and its unintended consequences. There's also an exploration of a possible explanation for what's called medical vampirism. It's based on actually a medical condition. And so there's some interesting peeling of the onion on what that means, especially with Chris's visits to the blood bank. So there's a little bit of a suspense element to the story. It's also an examination of the human condition, including how far people will go to save lives, as well as the flip side of putting others at risk, while also addressing matters of faith. So our goal is to package this project with A-list action director and lead actor, as we've talked about, but also diverse cast to ensure broad relevance and appeal. And we're pursuing a balanced financing plan, as you'll learn later on, to ensure that there's a road towards profitability.
So who are we? We are Normal Avenue Productions, a group of people that met at a UCLA class and decided to make a movie together. But because we don't really have a track record, we're partnering with Cross Creek Pictures. You might know them from Black Swan, Ides of March, Women in Black, and Rush. Movies that have a similar budget. They also produced Flatliners, which is one of our comps that you'll see later, which has a sci-fi, medical, and dark kind of human edge to it. Tone and marketing, let's go into it.
I think we have, yeah, I can present this since I did part of this. So obviously being a medical or heavily medical based sci-fi thriller, we wanted to include lots of interior shots within labs, of course. And although it is kind of playing off that, you know, COVID kind of recency and focus on like laboratories and like biological aspects, we still want it to be a bit more sci-fi, like, you know, not too distant future, just to really play off, you know, what really makes sci-fi so much fun as a visual medium. So you go to the next one. So one of the locations we really wanted to shoot at was San Francisco, and you'll see in our production incentives that we're also shooting there, like on location. And we just believe there's a lot of tech buildings, both interior and exterior, that could be potentially useful when it comes to location scouting. So that's why we chose to go with that. So the target audience was done based firstly on sci-fi, which tends to target the male demographic. And then there's the secondary genre of the medical-based doctor aspect, which tends to target more of the female demographic. So there's a primary demographic of males and a secondary demographic of females. But in terms of appeal, especially with the recency of COVID, we believe that it's a fairly broad target audience compared to maybe most other films. So yeah, as we've been saying so far, on its own, definitely a very interesting story about what makes it important to finance today and to get it, in some form of distribution as quickly as possible is the, extreme focus on basically biology or COVID, viruses, diseases, things that affect the human body. So I guess this is where the grounded aspect comes in. It's not like, 2001: A Space Odyssey or something like that. It's not like distant future or interstellar travel or something like that. It's, human-based sci-fi.
So speaking of marketing, here we are marketing some brands within our film. We really targeted, we reached out to a brand integration agency, and they targeted some high level categories. Pharma, you'll see Johnson & Johnson will be used since there's a lot of pharma and tech. Speaking of tech, we have Samsung and HP on board. And then because it's kind of a personal drama, people will need some things to eat and drink. So we got Red Bull, sugar-free Red Bull to be a healthy option, as well as Kind bars. But, people will need to have a drink. So we have spirits. Diageo Spirits will be offering multiple fees based on several of their brands. And Steelcase will provide furniture that will lower the production cost as kind of an in-kind base. And on to the finance plan.
Okay, so in the production incentives, so as I mentioned, we chose San Francisco because of its visual aesthetic, but also it has a pretty good tax incentive. So it's kind of nice that the location you want to shoot at, and it is pretty close to LA, but also a very good tax incentive region. But if we do, let's say, a struggle with aspects of the finance plan, we could move to a slightly higher tax sensitive region. Particularly in like Canada, like Toronto has, I think, a 30% tax incentive. So if we need that extra 5%, it's definitely an option that we're willing to consider.
And I'm on location right now. You can see the bridge behind me.
Hey.
He's scouting. That's how far in it is. So you're joining a project very far in development.
It's happening.
Yeah. So when it comes to similar projects, it's actually pretty interesting. This particular kind of subgenre, I guess, of grounded sci-fi with some focus on biology tends to be very hit or miss, as you can see by the profit loss to the right. Even not just in terms of, they either make or lose money, but the degree to which they lose or make money. Either losing over half their budget or making double their money. And just from what we've been able to gather, a commonality between the ones that do profit is a relatively A-list cast. So if we look at Contagion, it's a bit dated, 2011, but obviously highly relevant, at least based on obviously COVID and the themes of the movie. Had Matt Damon and Gwyneth Paltrow to some degree in a minor role, so A-list cast. Life, another movie that profited pretty well, had Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal as leading actors, and obviously popular with younger demographics as well. So that was obviously something that influenced both our, budget, but also our casting. So if you go next slide, please. So based on the budget, we felt that 35 million, or sorry, based on previous projects, we felt that 35 million would have been the ideal budget for this project. And as far as, so if you go to the next slide quickly and go back. So the budget is built off of basically assumptions that were given to us early on in the course, I believe week 2 or 3 or something like that. So we just plugged our budget into the kind of breakdown of above the line, below the line. Like we didn't actually go into that like extreme level of detail. Obviously we didn't know exactly how to produce it. So heavily based on given assumptions.
Cross Creek will help with that.
Yeah, of course, they can refine it further. Next slide, please. So what was interesting about this project is because we used an average of the comparable films, it's a pretty close call when it comes to profit. So we wanted to be very careful with how we got our funding. So a couple key things that I guess to mention are for our P&A, it's not exactly covered in the course, but I've heard it covered in other courses where the distributor will get 35%, but in a fee of the box office. But in that, it's assumed that they're covering the P&A to their discretion. So we didn't really break out P&A or the marketing plan in any particular detail. We just assumed that the distributor was going to handle it in exchange for that 35% fee. So that affected our domestic box office. So yeah, as you can see, the profit is very slim. Another area that we use to just get us above the line is deferment. So we, I guess, assumed a higher level of in-kind services and deferments. In particular, we have about $700,000 in music that we are, it's basically, we're giving away the music rights to that producer. So it's entirely free, but they control the soundtrack and any profits they make off of that. So next slide, please.
Yep. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So one major aspect of risk for us is, I guess, also one of the benefits, which is the recency of COVID. So it could be that by the time this movie comes out, we'll have lost a lot of steam from that. So that's definitely an important thing to consider. If maybe tons of movies come out related to biological sci-fi, we might get lost in the noise. So we want to produce this as quickly as possible. And potentially reducing the number of A-list leading actors. We do have quite a bit. So if the budget becomes an issue, we can keep maybe the leading roles and then maybe take some B or C-list actors in the supporting roles. And I believe that's it for our presentation.
And thank you for investing.
All right. So the one thing I wanted to mention earlier presentation was actually missing, I believe, the producers and directors vision, now that you guys have put it in there. So that's something you want to put in there as a creative component. The presentation is beautiful. It's very stylish. I really liked what you did, especially because you called it grounded sci-fi, and the presentation kind of reflected that kind of genre that you're going for. I would have liked to, that's just me, would have known, okay, what year are we in? Are we like 20, 23, 21? How far in advance are we? So it's always good to know, to say this is grounded sci-fi, but we're close to where we are. So, throw a year in there or something. You did a finance plan. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail. I wasn't really able to follow your finance plan, especially with the comment that you made for distribution. It is not the case that 35% distribution charge automatically means that they're paying for P&A. There are different deals you can do with the studio, and we talked about this, I believe, in module 2 or 3, where we talk about the different variations of what kind of studio deal you do, what kind of release campaign you do, what kind of domestic distribution you do. You kind of need to define what the plan is here. When you have a movie that's $35 million, you need to tell me what you're going to do with it. So it can't be like, we don't know. It should be more like, we're planning to sell it to one of the mini majors, and we're assuming that we're going to get a minimum guarantee in the range of 25 to 40% of the budget. They will be then releasing and taking care of the P&A. Alternatively, we will be raising P&A financing and release it ourselves on 1,500 screens, something like that. But I want to know whether $35 million budget, is this going theatrical or not? And if it's not going theatrical, if you say we don't know because of COVID, just tell me what your US buyer thoughts are, who you want to target this to. You give examples on other movies. They are released by certain studios, which could be the studios who could be mentioned too, as a comparison to where you would be going with this. So that's something I think is important. You did not tell me how much money I'm making as the equity investor, so I want to see my return of investment. What else? The characters. I would have liked to know a little bit more about the characters. Sorry, I'm jumping back to creative, because the story is quite interesting, but I don't know who I'm dealing with. You know, what's the specialty about this guy? What's the deal with this wife? What is their relationship like? Who are the other people? Who is he fighting against? Who is a villain? Who is someone who's helping? I need these characters broken down. You did talk about them a little bit, but I need to see that actually in writing. Who are they? What's their specialty? What is their job in the story, and what's their story force? How do they drive it forward? So that would be my only comments for this. Does anyone else have any comments for this one? Okay.
It looks action-packed.
Action-packed, yeah.
Yeah.
Did my comments make sense to you guys, Jeremy, Johnny?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
All right. All right.
More of a question for me, Jeanette. Regarding the summary, I've been told by some other producers and investors, I want to get your opinion, that they're looking for more detail in the story, including maybe giving away things or certain plot points that wouldn't be revealed to an audience, or say in a description that you would put out in a trailer or a teaser intended for an audience. Be more detailed in regards to a producer or an investor. So, you know, with an audience, you don't want to give away any twists or turns, any plot points. With the investors, the people you're pitching to, you do want to give away more story detail because that could influence them. What's your opinion on that? I kind of felt like their summary was a little bit general compared to
that's why
what I've been told people wanted.
Now, the summary is a personal, you know, how you summarize the story is a personal thing. As I mentioned, I had a hard time grasping these characters. Which they were, to me, they were not quite there in the summary. They were not quite there in the log line a little bit. So yes, you do need more meat to tell me who are these people, what's different. You did tell me the guy's eccentric. You did tell me, I mean, you alluded to the fact that he might himself have leukemia. I wasn't clear on that, but I'm guessing that's why he is running out of time, which was mentioned twice. I do think that the summary should include, the log line should be a log line that leaves open a question as to why I would want to see the movie. So it sums up the story, and here's why it's interesting. And then the log line kind of gives, the summary gives me kind of the answers to what I'm looking for. So yes, I do reveal in the log line for an investor what the story is and how it ends. And I kind of tell it the way you would see it. And I will give the juice in, as I call the juice, creative juice, as in with, you know, who are my characters, why are they different, how are they working together? So it's very important to understand who the characters are, but also in the log line, how they coincide with each other. And of course, the plot is essential. You can give them the solution at the end as to who's the murderer, if it's a mystery, or how they solve the problem in this case with the vaccine or what they're doing. You can mention that when you give it to an investor. When you give it to a creative buyer, it's not advised to give them the outcome. It's more advised to make it anticipating for them to want to see this, to want to. It's more of a sales pitch. So the story log line for an investor or a financier would be more detailed, would have a conclusion, versus the one for the distributor would be more enticing and would be more of a sales pitch. Does that make sense, Natalie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember them saying, you know, he's running out of time, and also that he has a potential solution that could speed up the process, but also puts a lot of people at risk, but they don't say what that is. I know sometimes you'd want to say what that is, and sometimes you don't.
No, in this
case, what we did is we actually had the summary and then a link to a more detailed log line, which basically shows the entire story.
Right.
So we sort of, to keep it brief, we wanted to keep it more suspenseful.
Got it. No, I remember you saying there is a link, which by the way is not a bad idea to do, to have a link to something and not show it in the presentation, to keep the presentation brisk and short. So there is more there. I'd love to see that, Jonathan. If you guys want to send me the full thing, I'd love to see what you did with the content and how you worked that. Just so I have a better idea of where the story is going, if that's okay with you. Don't have to do it right this minute, but you can just send it to me later. I'm just curious. And then Natalie, I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very, I would watch this movie. I would watch both of them. They're very good pictures. They're very good ideas and very enticing. So just like these few little comments, hopefully they help. And okay, I think if you don't have any other questions, I will let you go for today. Sorry it took so long, but I did want to hear some of these pitches, which I usually do at a different time. I usually do one class just for pitches and then one class for the final. But I wasn't sure who was ready to pitch and I didn't get enough feedback on that. So I thought I'd just throw it in with the final. So thank you for this. And anyone else who wants to pitch, please let me know and I'll be happy to meet you. Other than that, if I don't see you around and I don't get any emails from you, I'm wishing you all the best. Please stay in touch with me. Tell me what you're working on. Tell me if I can be of help in any way. Tell me where you get stuck. Don't be strangers. And feel free.
Jeanette, are you gonna share your email with us, or are we?
Yes,
just
it's on the slide that I will send you.
Okay.
It's basically just JB at Alliance Cinema. I'm going to put it in here.
It's in the last module.
Cinema, but also all the stuff is in the last module. Anyway, all the contact information, Alliance Cinema. But here it is, just in case, so you have it. And of course, you know where to reach me. Some of you even have my number. So just feel free to reach out anytime you have something or you have a question. It's absolutely no bother at all and no problem. I wish you a beautiful weekend.
Happy holidays.
Dave,
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Jeanette.
so
It's been a great
much.
class.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Good luck to all you guys.
Best class ever.